you talk, I'll probably have to like hold the phone up. So just know that when you start, like prompt us if you want to say something so that I'm sure to get it right next to the mic, okay? Of course. You go to the town of Winchester, look for where it says YouTube, and then click live stream. And it is probably running now. Okay. Okay. Okay, don't forget to mute yourself.
All set? Okay, everyone, I'm going to call the February 24th Winchester Board of Education special meeting to order at 5:03 PM. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming out at 5 o'clock. It's an unusual time, and thank you for hustling from work to be here today. Can we start with roll call? Kurt?
Kurt Werner.
Jonathan Morhart.
Allison Pierce.
Tori Lavetri.
Nora Mukarski?
Julie Luby.
Renee Waldron.
Jeanette Broder?
Sandra Strubar.
Just for the record, Sandra Subar is recording in through cell phone. She has the flu. She is ill. Okay. Item 2, approval of the agenda. Given that there's a couple of people out there, I was going to ask for a motion to add public comment to make it item 3 underneath the approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Allison. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jonathan? Okay.
And because we have one person participating remotely, we need to do all votes by roll call so that you announce your name and your yes or no, or yay or nay, whatever you prefer.
Okay, so the motion to add public comment as item 3 to the agenda has been made first by Allison, seconded by Jonathan. All in favor by roll call. Kurt?
Yes.
Say your name and then say
Kurt
yes or no.
Werner. Yes.
Jonathan Morhart.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Allison Pierce, yes.
Tori Lavetri, yes.
Nora Mukarski, yes.
Renee Waldron, yes.
Jeanette Broder, yes.
Sandra?
Sandra Strubar, yes.
Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you for that. Anything else to add to the agenda?
I would like to add a clarification of last week's motion to come with the Gilbert motion, Shane's motion. I had just talked to him, and he said he had some language he would like to add to clarify that motion he had made last week, so hopefully he comes in. I'll put that on the agenda for him.
Where would you like to add that? Perhaps under communication or a separate item underneath?
Communications or
So
action
that makes it
items. We'll
4.
make it action items, 'cause we may have to vote on it again, right? If he adds language.
Action items for discussion and possible action.
Right. Thank you, Jonathan.
So that would make it item B. Motion, or discussion and possible motion. I'm sorry, can you elaborate?
For, clarification of the motion made or impossible adding of language in the Gilbert motion made last week.
From last meeting. Okay. Discuss and possible motion for clarification. I don't know if we can clarify previous motions as much as make new motions. Discuss and possible motion for.
Okay, let's just put discussion on and possible action on budget cohesion with Gilbert.
It would be the same motion style as the motion made at the previous budget meeting about the motion made before. It'd be a similar kind of.
How about we'll say cohesion of style of motion, because that previous motion, that business was done. So if you want to undo that business, we have to make a motion to undo the business before we then re-motion to do new business. Which case you need 2/3 majority to undo the previous motion from the previous meeting. So it sounds like you're really just looking for clarification. How about discussion and possible motion for clarification of budget cohesion?
Yes.
It's essentially.
It's to clarify the motion.
Okay. So it's really discussion.
Possible action.
With possible action.
Okay, we'll say discussion and possible motion for clarification of budget cohesion style between Gilbert and the Winchester Public Schools.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so that's adding to action items, item B, by voice vote again.
You need a second?
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, that's right. Thank you, Tori and Jonathan, thank you. All in favor?
Kurt Warner, yes.
Jonathan Moorhart, yes.
Allison Pierce, yes.
Tori LaVetre, yes.
Nora McCarski, yes?
Renee Waldron, yes.
Jeanette Broder, yes.
Sandra Strubar, yes.
Okay, that is unanimous. That's 8-0. All right, thank you. Anything else to add to the agenda? Okay, item 3, which is now communications. Is there anybody on the board here has received any sort of communication from the community regarding the budget that they'd like to share? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to action item A, review and question answers and deliberation on the superintendent's proposed 2026 budget.
Did we add public comment?
Oh my gosh, yeah, my apologies, we did. We have to get into public comment, sorry. Okay, after communications, we go public comment. Okay. Typically, as a Board of Education, we allow 3 minutes for the public to speak per our policy. Persons willing to speak would be signing in. They would also give us, if you would, your information about your address, your email, so that the superintendent could be directed to respond. Customarily, it is not a policy of the board to respond today, though we would direct the superintendent to make appropriate responses as indicated. Does anybody wish to speak? Does anyone wish to speak? Okay. Does any?
Not at all.
No? Okay, does anybody else wish to speak? Okay, seeing none, we're moving on to then action item A, review and question and answers and deliberation of our budget.
I'll kick us off with just sort of a status update where we are, if that's all right. At our last meeting, we went through some pretty granular level detail of the budget in hopes that that would provide board members with a real sense of what's in the budget and how much room there is for adjustments. If after hearing that at the last meeting or reviewing it in reflection, or if you weren't here and have any questions, Nancy and I will do our best to answer those on the spot. As we move into deliberation of what to do with the budget, I will bring you my recommendation tonight that you reduce my proposed budget by $100,000, and I'll explain how I've come to that number. 56,000 and little bits is the difference between what Gilbert initially signaled to us was their number and then came in differently. So that's a reduction, of course, in the exact amount that's different. And then, as I think maybe everyone is aware, there's action in the legislature having its first vote tonight and a second vote tomorrow that seems very likely to be yielding us additional excess cost grant reimbursement. We don't know that for certain. We don't know the amount for certain, so I'm reluctant to get overzealous with it. But my suggestion is that if you reduce my proposed budget by $100,000, I'm boldly counting on, assuming it passes, that we get at least $44,000 more than anticipated. And am suggesting that you make that reduction in the hopes that that goes through, and with the knowledge that if it somehow fell apart and we didn't get excess cost grant money, then I would have to find a different way to make that up, and it would likely be the cafeteria monitors, which is essentially about that same amount of money. I hate to see those go, but that's my safety net if the legislature doesn't do as predicted and provide us more. And then the other thing I would say to you is that at any point during this process, if we became aware that, you know, we were suddenly coming into lots more money than anticipated, we always have the ability to signal the town manager later that we are motioning to reduce our request. There's nothing saying, I'm certain that if we give Paul a number and then later reduce it, that he will not be upset with us. But he needs to develop his budget with a number, and he's asking that we give it to him this week because he is signaling that it's his intention to take what we give him and sort of work around that to come up with something that he feels will pass in the community. So I think it's important that we do our best to get him something so that he can stay in appreciation of the work we're doing.
So to move the football forward, one of the things we can do is make a motion to approve the budget for that $100,000 less, whatever the number is. And then we can second it, and then we would have discussion on that proposal.
That's probably.
So right now, yeah.
I'm not at a point with this budget where I feel like I'm gonna want to vote for it tonight. I think there's work to be done. I'd like to see the outcome of what happens in Hartford today and tomorrow. I'd like to, frankly, look at some other cuts that we can make. 8%. It's a big ask from the community, and I really feel like as much as anyone hates to cut any education, we already have one of the highest rates of property tax in the country. It's sky high in the state, and we're looking at, kicking people out of their homes with a huge 8% increase. A lot. That could be up to 2 mills in the town. Am I correct in saying that?
Except that the mill rate isn't based on our number
Right.
alone. It encompasses the full town budget, so
But
that's a
about
little hard to say till we get the
from
number.
what I understand, about a 2% or for every $1 million is about a mill increase, right?
1.2, Paul said the other day. $1.2 million would be a
Right.
1
1%.
increase.
1 mill increase.
Because it all depends on what's happening with the grand list.
Right.
So are we in the discussion phase, or should we make a motion?
Well,
'Cause
there
I'm
is no
prepared to
motion on the
make a motion.
table. There is no motion, but my concern is that we're running out of time. We have nothing booked for our next meeting. This is it. This is all the meetings that we have booked is tonight. Paul does need to work on his number and his budget. We're looking at 100,000 already, just from what you had mentioned. So we can make the motion and then have further discussions. If you're ready with further cuts, then you would offer them tonight. And then we can continue to work at that, making amendments to the original motion, which would mean further cuts if that's what you're asking for, or this board closes discussion and we vote for that main motion that's on the table.
May I ask, are we doing any more discussion about the budget, or are you trying to move us to a motion, Laura?
Procedurally, you should have a motion on the floor to have that discussion. It's just, and then you can always withdraw the motion, you can vote on the motion and have it fail or pass.
Right.
But technically, these discussions should happen in the presence of an active motion.
Right.
Understood.
Can I ask, Julie, is it okay if I ask you, I have a question about the budget, since that's kind of where we were starting with, was discussion of the budget. In the book on the 5-year capital plan funding, I know that we're starting to, which I think is a great idea, starting to think about funding our capital projects.
Detail.
And I know that we're asking the town support for education at about $711,000, which is up from last year. Is that, and you might have addressed it last time and it just went over my head, is the $579,000 for this new, so roughly 580, the 2025-26 funding, your capital plan funding, is that a line item in the budget right now? Is this something that has been figured into the budget? Is this an additional ask to the town? What are we doing with that 580 number?
The capital plan is not within our budget request to the town at all. It's not reflected in the appropriated budget or the town support. It's been shared with Paul for a discussion around whether the town has an appetite for including along with the town's capital line, a capital line to maintain the school buildings.
Okay, so basically it's our wish list of what we would like to see start happening to the physical structures of the building.
That's
Having a
well
game
said,
plan.
yes.
Do we
But it's not
currently have,
reflected anywhere within the budget.
do we currently
thank you.
have a 2% non-lapsing fund?
Technically, we do. It has $1,800 in it, maybe. That's on here somewhere. Nancy?
Yeah, like 1837.
And do we tap that quite often to supplant our operating budget?
No,
So we just strictly use it for capital improvements?
not strictly, but for the most part, yes, it has been for capital improvements. It helped fund the air conditioning project over at Pearson School. But after we lost the boiler this past spring, we got.
We drained it.
They took us to the shed.
Yeah.
No, the town funded it because we didn't have the money. So, we said, well, we need to get this capital plan together and get it to the town because we need to communicate. There are things that are very short-term that we're gonna have to deal with.
Yeah.
But didn't,
Was the non-lapsing last year used to offset some of the budget cuts?
that was the year before, I believe.
Which is why there's nothing in it now.
Right.
But the big chunks that came out of it were for capital improvements.
And do we have a current policy that states how capital, our non-lapsing fund is authorized or utilized? I know certain districts are very strict with it in that that has to be presented to the board has to approve the funding that comes out of the capital fund. Not only do you have to approve the 2% to go in, but we also have the authority to approve what it comes out for expenditures.
So this board reviewed the 3,000 series policies probably last spring, right before I got here. I have to be
Me
honest and
too.
say, I haven't looked at that policy because we didn't have any money in the account, so
Yeah.
it hasn't been top of my list yet. I don't know if Nancy or Nora, if either of you knows what the policy is. I'm
Oh,
guessing there
we-
is one, we could find out.
When we were doing iterations of the budget in years past, we voted on using that
Yeah.
2%
To help
to
support.
help offset the ask to the town, which is why it drizzled down to 1,800.
Before we get too
Past
far,
practice has been that the
Right.
board, would concur with the superintendent's recommendations. I mean, it was never turned down.
Right.
The rationale was given, and yes.
before we get too far into discussion, because I know we're like in the middle of discussion right now, I would like to make that motion to approve the proposed WPS budget for the 2020,
For the fiscal year 26,
for the fiscal year 2026,
in the amount.
in the amount of $24,143,865.
Which is 100,000 less than I proposed initially.
I'll second that. Nora? Renee first, Nora second.
Okay, no.
Now, we would have discussion after this, okay? All in favor by voice vote? Kurt, you want to start?
Kurt Warner, no.
Jonathan Morhart, no.
Allison Pierce, no.
Tori LaVetri, no.
We're voting for the motion.
Yeah.
Make the motion and then have discussion?
Typically, you would make the motion, and then before you put it to a vote is when you have that discussion.
All right, my
Right.
apologies, right, I'm out of order. Okay, sorry, we're not voting. The motion is on the table for discussion now.
I was looking for that policy. I looked up, I'm like, you're voting already? I wasn't ready.
Yeah, we haven't finished discussing
There
yet.
is a non-lapsing policy, by the way.
Did you hear that, Sandra?
Yes, I did, thank you.
It's Renee, I'm holding onto the phone.
Okay, so
Thanks, Renee.
my first question is, what do we do if we adopt this budget, bring it forward, and the Board of Selectmen say, you need to cut $1 million. What is our, I mean, because at the end of the day, we can't get blood from a stone. There's very limited revenue in this town. Our taxpayers are burdened to the hill with a variety of things. And like, what is our contingency plan if the Board of Selectmen will not support this? Do we have one? Are we waiting until we get that news before we think about that stuff, or?
So let me say this, needless to say, I've been thinking about that
Yeah.
from day one of the process, maybe even day one on the job, what would happen if, and obviously the 100,000 reduction today is an easy one, if you will. A little risky because we don't actually know the outcome of the excess cost grant, but after that, I guess what I would say to you is, so I don't have a list to hand you and say, here's all the things we could get rid of, because unlike some of our colleagues in other districts, there is nothing that's like a fun idea. When I presented the budget to you, I expressed that it was based on needs, not wants and dreams. The cafeteria monitors is to improve academics by increasing the time interventionists can intervene. That's like my first line cut. So we're already hitting the core, but that is an improvement or something we're not already doing.
Right.
The BCBA we're already doing.
We're just budgeting for it.
Right, so, and if you said cut the BCBA, we would still have to do it.
Right, it's
So-
just like cut the sub line. We still have to pay subs.
Right.
It's gonna get paid, it's just not gonna be budgeted for.
The kindergarten teacher, as we sit here today, appears to be 100% necessary in the weeks to come as deliberations happen. If those numbers of enrollments slow, you know, we can continue to look at the scaled metric. I think I explained, I don't know if you were here, but we have to pay for every kid over the limit.
Yep, I know.
So there's sort of a tipping point of when you're not actually saving money to not add the teacher.
Yeah, and there's no caveat to that, right? Like, so when kids are absent and the teacher really only has 17 kids in her class or his class, there's no,
No,
so
I mean,
whatever's registered in the class, whether the children show up or not, the teacher would be getting the elevated pay.
I will say to you, I think if somebody like moved away and that took it
Correct.
back within the limit.
Right,
But on
obviously,
any given day,
the
though.
registration.
And the number in kindergarten is 18. We're currently anticipating, was the number 80?
Yeah, 20-something
Right.
without adding a teacher.
Which would actually cost us more to do it without adding the teacher.
Yep.
Never, so, and without adding the teacher, then you'd really be asking yourself, shouldn't we be having teaching assistants if you've got a kindergarten class with 22 kids in it? And we only have 2 for the current 4 classes, so, but I'm watching that. So to your question about like contingency, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, hopefully if the sky falls, maybe the kids also don't come, and that's a place I would go. We can continue to talk about the safety officers, because that is an addition. I mean, it's not an addition because we're setting up interviews now, but they don't currently exist in the budget, and that's up for grabs. You know, Mel did the cursory shaving, if you will, of going around, like she got rid of the last halftime secretaries.
I'm well aware that it's a bare bones
Yeah.
budget, and I'm not trying to insinuate in any way that there's
No.
any fluff or room for movement. I want to be very clear. I fully support the work that you and your staff have done to provide, and I am well aware that it's a needs-based budget, definitely. My concern is just that if we don't have the money to pay for the needs, what are we going to do? Which programs are really going to get cut?
So realistically, you know, being an elementary district, there aren't even really programs to cut per se, right? Like, we can't go to pay to play for athletics.
Right.
Although one of the things that I have on a list of things to discuss your appetite for is, should we go to some enrollment cost for students who are in our preschool by choice? For a modest revenue, we
Oh.
could perhaps cover the
We don't
cost of one
charge
teacher.
tuition for gen ed pre-K.
Correct. I think the feeling has been, we want all the kids to be in a pre-K program, and if we charge money, might some of them stay home rather than come?
Of course.
Yep.
But even if we charged $50 a week for gen ed students, and we fill the program, that might defray the cost of one of the teachers.
Yeah.
So that's on, when you say program, I'm gonna say to you, that's kind of, that, and at the last meeting, we talked about creating an incentive for folks with another option to go off of our insurance. So those are two things that I'm open to discussing as ways to mitigate if we have to make, significant cuts. After that, everything that I would say to you comes in the category of, it's not programmatic because there aren't programs, it's just chipping away at the core. We could take one paraprofessional, one teacher, one secretary.
I think we only have one secretary at each school.
So there is one secretary working in the Gilbert School in special education. She is not answering the main phones of the school. And I hate to highlight a human being like that in the
Yep.
meeting and say like that position, but
Yep.
that would be the closest thing to non-essential I could put my fingers on. So at this point, genuinely, I'm not naive and I'm not gonna sit here and say we can't. I mean, if we have to, but it will 100% impact kids.
Absolutely.
There's nothing left that doesn't take adults away from children.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that all of us should be considering as we deliberate tonight, is that, our role is to support the education budget and the education of the students here in Winchester. So although we want to be cognizant of the cost to our taxpayers, we also need to understand that our main mission is what's appropriate for all of the students to receive an equitable education. So just if we could all keep that in the back of our minds, that it's a delicate balance of how much it costs versus what we actually need in order to provide kids with the education that they are entitled to. Thank you, Julie.
Just to add to that, we all kind of met at our retreat. We all met at our retreat, we all developed goals, board goals, and then the district goals and Julie's goals all kind of were wrapped into those. And we really identified areas where we really wanted to address, right, as a district. I mean, I think we were all in agreement on those different things that we decided were our goals. And, this is the cost of our goals. I mean, I hate to say it any other way, but we wanted security in the schools. We still want it. I don't want to see a teacher cut. I mean, if it's between security and a teacher, I'm going to say security because, those teachers need to be working with our kids. I mean, if it comes down to it, that. Just my opinion.
Does anyone want to go to, that list of non-payroll items? To look at other further costs, cuts?
I think it's section
I was wondering if we can go to, it's under supplies, the 600 series, and the payroll piece right in here.
The non-contractual document is the last page of the budget overview section.
Right.
I will work on page numbers for next year, I promise. If that's, I know you were referring to that,
Yeah.
and then you wanted to go in deeper.
Yeah,
Are you at the 611?
I'm at the 611, I'm just trying to find my,
Page 9.
okay. You know how we're supposed to receive Title IX supplies in the neighborhood of somewhere around 20,000? First, we would use it, and then move to this page. I know it's peanuts. It's not gonna move the needle much. But, supplies, consumables, can they be reduced by a certain percent? I don't know. I don't want to go after copy paper, student recognition, that's $690.
One of my, well, my children went through Winchester Public Schools, but I remember getting like a pretty lengthy list from the teachers when I had to like buy supplies and basically like for the classroom. It was a lot, and it was a lot, I think. I mean, if we cut here, that's just gonna be put on to parents that are gonna have to buy stuff for the classroom. Like, I don't know if it's gonna help any, it's gonna, we still need the supplies. Unless anybody has some ideas.
My thought is the same as I said last week, is I think there's a pretty significant cost savings that we could incur by moving away from some of the screen technologies, Chromebooks and smart boards and such. I would touch the Chromebooks first. Like we said, we have one almost for every student. Could we maybe have a cart that we push around and it goes class to class, and each kid can have an account on there? Could that save us money? Could we scrap the Chromebooks altogether? I mean, the just iReady programming, we're at $27.5. That's not even the Chromebook. That's not even all the setting up for the Chromebooks. It's a lot of money rolled into these Chromebooks. And as I said, I think that I speak for a lot of people in saying kids don't need more screen time. I don't think. I realize they like the iReady. I realize we track things on the computer. We haven't always done it that way. We've done it other ways before, of course, tracked kids and their stuff, without the use of a computer. And all these kids I'm sure go on screens all day when they get out of school. So if we could keep them off for the 6 hours they're in school, I think it's a good thing. I think it saves us quite a bit of money. That's one idea that I have.
iReady has been a program that we invested in, and it's been year 2.
This is year 2.
Right, so I'd hate to see that disappear when we've invested already tens of thousands of dollars in it. And one of the things that made us a unique district is the movement we made in reading and the progress kids made in the reading, both in math as well as reading. And so we've advanced on that, and we felt that a couple years ago this would be a continued tool to help all kids move and advance in their individualized growth, not just, subcategories of kids. And the benefit of the iReady software is to provide a kid an immediate program to help with those weaknesses as adaptive software. So, I think that's still, I know it's $27.5, I think that's an investment we made 2 years ago, that if that were to disappear for both literacy and math, I don't think we'd continue to see the growth that we've seen in the last several years. That's my only concern.
So, as a teacher, it's very interactive, like, what the students are doing. It's not like they're on there watching, like, YouTube videos or something like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like all of the districts that I know of, each student has their own device. Like, it's that, a school issued device, and like every district that I'm aware of, so I would hate to then, for our students not to have what basically everybody else has. Like, they deserve it, to be able to do their learning on it and when they need it, I don't know, it's just.
Are there also some required state tests that are only done via computer now?
Yes, to take SBAC testing, you do need to be on a device, and it has to be maintained by the district. Like, you can't take that on a personal device.
And that's from grades 4 through 6?
3 through 8, actually.
3 through 8? Right, but for our purposes.
3
4
through 6.
3
3 through 6, yeah.
Okay. I just want to say something about the budget. I mean, as Renata said, I'm in full agreement. Nobody wants to take away from the school budget, right? Our kids deserve the same type of education that Simsbury kids are getting. But we also live in the real world, and we understand what happened last year. So, yeah. So we live in the real world. We understand what happened last year. And
Are you
And
referring to
in-
the the referendums? Okay, thank you.
I am.
Okay.
And, right, and the budget was sent back, was it 3 times? for additional cuts?
I think it
Twice.
passed on the
It passed
third.
on the
Twice.
third, so, yeah, just, so,
Right,
right.
so 3 votes, 2 cuts. The first one was shared with Gilbert, the second one we took on our own. And nobody wants to send, at least I, and I'm sure others agree with me, we don't want to send a budget that's going to be immediately sent back and said, you have to make a massive cut, right? So I think the responsible thing to do, I know we want to vote on this budget. I know that Paul would like to get it as soon as possible. I don't think this end of this week is realistic. I wonder if next week is realistic, all right? We've asked that Julie and Greg collaborate and that we get feedback. So I think it is not out of the realm that we continue discussion, but that we vote after we have all the information. I think I hear what Tori is saying. I think that the can has been kicked down the road multiple years. This is one of the reasons that we are in this place. And we want our schools to be well funded, but we're on the cusp here with this town. What I understand that the selectmen and Paul is trying to do is to bring revenue into this town so that we don't have to have these kinds of discussions anymore, right? In a perfect world, it would be great just to pass the budget. We hand it to the selectmen. The selectmen said, great, we can afford to fund this. It's signed off. Everybody votes the first time and everybody's happy. But that's not the reality. And so I think we need to be realistic about this. I'm looking at the technology page. Do I want to cut 25.9 out of our budget for technology, knowing that the stuff is breaking and that we're just kicking the can down the road to next year? Maybe. But if that's where a cut, because really I don't want to get rid of teachers. I absolutely agree with you, Renata. If we have to get rid of something, it's not going to be a teacher. But again, we're kicking the can down the road by not upgrading our smart boards at 2 times, not upgrading the replacement of the Chromes, the 4 replacement monitors. Julie, can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
With the iReady for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, right? How much time would you say those kids are on laptops in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade?
So what I can tell you is that iReady's research says that if kids spend, they use the expression sweet spot, that if kids spend 45 minutes a week in either reading or math, that that is the amount of time that gets them the most bang for their buck. So
Okay.
ideally, they're spending, on average, 20 minutes a day, and at some grade levels, we look at that as homework. For some, it's what they're doing during their win time or as their morning work. But 10 minutes for reading, 10 minutes for math, that combination of 20 minutes a day gets them all of that personalized, differentiated work that has been assigned based on the assessment that's responsive to what they're ready to learn next.
Mm-hmm. So in all reality, those individual laptops are sitting unused for a majority of the portion of the day.
Well, that's the amount of time that they should be using it for iReady. I could ask the principals to talk a little bit more about other ways that the Chromebooks get used in instruction. I know in the older grades, the kids are using it in all kinds of ways for research and their CKLA.
Sure. Okay, sure.
So
well, that's why I
iReady
asked
is
for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, right? Is because if we're discussing replacing some of these, maybe if we have to replace, it's in the Pearson. Again, if we're looking at cuts, and that's what we're talking about right now, I'm looking at the things that unfortunately is kicking the can down the road, which unfortunately has gotten us here. I mean, I'm sure Nancy can contest to how many years this budget came in at 0 because of whatever reasons, and that wasn't ever a good idea, and now we're sort of paying for it. So if, again, we're looking for cuts, is this a cut we can make? I guess that's maybe what I'm getting to. 5.9 off the budget by not replacing some of the equipment that is needed to be replaced. Can we kick that down the road for next year? Because again, if the idea is that we're trying to build the revenue in this town, hopefully we'll have some more money next year that we can actually use. So if we're looking for things that are not going to be painful, which people to me are painful, getting rid of people. Hello?
Yep.
Can we, is that a page, is that something that we can do? That's what I'm asking.
We got 40 in the budget at $350 each, which is equivalent to half a grade replacement. Not replacing, typically you
And
replace,
If you look on that page, Nora, we
Yeah.
have 25.9 for smart boards, Chromebooks, monitors, laptops,
Yeah.
and printers.
page 15
Yep.
of the technology hardware. So typically you replace one grade at a time, but here is the original request here is a half a grade, so.
I'd like to hear the administrators.
Yeah.
If you guys have anything you want to add regarding the Chromebook use in the classroom?
I can say that the if we're, does that work?
Yes.
Okay. If we are looking at how much time is spent on the CKLA curriculum with the students on their Chromebooks, I would have to say most students spend anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes every morning either doing some reading work or some writing work with the CKLA curriculum from grades 3 through 6. Math is primarily working teacher on Smartboard and students working in their workbooks. Science is much hands-on experimentation, so there isn't as much interaction on the Chromebooks for science. However, we do have gizmos and gadgets. These types of software programs can help prepare students to take tests that are standardized. In 5th grade, it's a standardized NGSS test that they have to be proficient on. In terms of the format of how tests are presented to them, there are tools that they have to be familiar with in terms of manipulating calculators on the computer and using, certain screen tools to help them with standardized tests. So it's really important that students have the exposure online so that they have the skills that they use the tools with for standardized tests, and because it's very interactive and engaging for them.
And those gizmos and gadgets and things like that, that's like labs, kind of like
Yeah, it's experimental.
experimental
Simulations,
labs,
yes.
right, on the
Yes, and those
computers.
are directly
Interactive.
correlated with the NGSS grade 5 science test. That's what they'll see on the test. So they need practice. Without the practice of the format and seeing it and practicing it, they're going to look at a screen, questions on the screen, and they're going to be blindsided by that without the practice online.
Can those Chromebooks, the 40 that we're looking to replace, can the original 40 that we have now survive another year?
It's difficult to say. I mean, we are definitely limping along with our current Chromebooks, and we are checking the Chromebooks weekly. Teachers have kids run, by their teacher every day. We report any damage. We try to fix damages. If it's intentional, we do charge the parent for the replacement of the screen or the computer. And with intentional monitoring of screen conditions and the condition every week, teachers have to check every student Chromebook every week. And with that, we are able to prevent carelessness and reinforce the need to take care of our computers. So we've seen better care with that monitoring, and even with that, they're approaching the end of their life. So, we might be able to get 2 more years out of most of our computers. I think that's being optimistic. But I'm not a technology expert, so that's my estimation.
Let me ask you a quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you feel that our parent population, that there is a small percentage of our current parent population that would be willing and able to buy their student their own Chromebook?
I think with our 6th graders, that might be an excellent initiative, that we talk the parents into the importance of having a home device. That has been some conversation that I'm starting to have with families. If they don't have a home computer, that it might be a good idea as a 6th grader to prepare them for the expectation of having technology proficiency when they get into middle school. I think most families, I would say maybe at least half families, have some type of a device, a desktop or an iPad or a device at home, and they are very supportive of students doing their iReady work online, and this is the world we live in. I think it would be a disservice to our students if we were to say that we cannot provide them with some form of a device to work on.
I
And
would
just
And
to
then
clarify,
my second, wait, let me just ask the second part of my question. The second part of my question is, I mean, it's only 14, not only 14,000, but we're talking about replacing 40. At 14,000, if we could get some parents who are willing to buy some of theirs, if we could get some donations perhaps from some people in town, right? Because also too, if we need to come up with creative ways, right? How do you come up with creative ways? Is you go out to the public to see who is willing, who is capable, who is able to help.
Sandra, this is Allison. I would caution us on that only due
Okay.
to certain special education laws that, and high-risk students that fall into certain categories that by law we cannot charge them, and so I would be apprehensive to.
No, not that we would charge them. Not that we would charge them, Allison, but allow parents who can afford it to buy a Chromebook for their student.
I
knowing
can
that we're
afford it
working
and
off
I
of that.
wouldn't do it.
so,
We
yeah, and
also-
Sandra, just a quick thing, but I think that there's a lot of like firewalls and things like that that are built
gonna say.
into all of the Chromebooks that are school issued.
Sure.
So
Yep.
they wouldn't have the same
Protections.
protections, right, that,
For use in school, they do need to be school devices, because we do install our monitoring software so that we're able to see what websites kids visit. Basically, everything that they create in Google is screened on a constant basis, and they know that. They have no expectation of privacy, so we're monitoring all of their interactions on there, all of the licensed software that they access through there. So while I wholly support that kids should have access to technology at home, and that's fabulous, for their in-school use, it does have to be a school device for those kinds of things.
Okay, thank you. Just
And is
trying
it
to think
possible
outside
in
the
the,
box.
in the younger grades that they share laptops? Like, could you have, one set for the whole grade and, move them to each? Is that a
I'm
possibility?
going to defer to Renee,
Thank
who
you.
works with the students.
Thank you. So I do think there's a possibility of doing some of that. Our second graders are currently using the Chromebooks. Some accommodations are happening that early on for students within their IEPs. So we certainly need them within the second grade. I want to add to that coding, which is hugely necessary, both at Pearson and at Hinsdale. We are teaching kids coding skills at the very young ages. I wouldn't say that they're using their Chromebooks extensively in kindergarten and first grade. But in what we're looking at in the budget, you start replacing at Pearson where they're used much more regularly, and you have the hand-me-downs come down. So I'm not sure that it would be a cost savings, but I would say that we are really teaching them technology skills that further their learning. It's not about just being on the computer. It's used as a tool, not a toy or a time saver.
So the cycle is to hand me down, not hand up? Because I would think if they're not used as much in kindergarten and first grade, they'd be in better condition to hand up to upper grades.
Now, again, like Barb said, I'm not a technology person, and I would defer to our technology staff to say what is the condition. But I've seen the condition. It's not really that great currently. So as Barb said, weekly, we have the teachers monitor the Chromebooks. We have things like missing keys, the volume doesn't work, the voice to text doesn't work, and of course we have to switch those out for students that are using them for their IEP accommodations. So the status of what we have at the lower grades isn't that great to begin with.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about the cafeteria monitors.
Yeah.
We don't have any now there.
Correct.
Okay, so this would be a new hire.
Right, currently our interventionists are scheduled in the lunchroom, and the theory of action there was if we want to increase student achievement, having our interventionists be able to access more students would help with that. And so if we had the people we've hired for academic intervention, providing that intervention and had people we hired to monitor student eating, it would be a boon to have that level of intervention available to kids.
But that also takes them away from their actual duties.
The
By
interventionists.
Yes,
Exactly, because they're doing lunch duty, they are not providing as much intervention as we would prefer.
correct.
So getting them available to do more would be great.
The one thing I worry about, and we're talking about kicking the can down the road and possibly with, replacing things, is the VCBA position is being paid mostly by a grant this year.
Fully this year with about $49,000 left in the grant to pay. So we don't have someone on staff this year. We're
Right.
paying through our ESSER mental health grant. We are paying two different, I don't know if it's two different agencies, but for two different consultants to each be part-time, and it's costing about $90,000 that way.
Right, so in the budget for next year, part of their position is being paid through a grant, right?
Right.
And that will be gone after next year.
Right.
So we're talking about not replacing things and pushing it down the road, and then we have to think about a position that's gonna be fully funded in a couple years in the budget.
Right, bringing that next piece of that position into
Yeah.
the appropriated budget, absolutely.
So we
That's
gotta
wise.
consider that as well.
Yeah, I personally think that we're at a point where you're gonna get, maybe we could scrounge up $25,000-$30,000. I don't think it's gonna really do anything. The costs are really the people. So are there after-school programs, stipends, before school, after school, why no, we don't have any?
We don't have it.
Well, Champs
What
is
we-
paid through
Champs-
grants.
We have a CHAMPS grant, which can only be used for community engagement activities. And so through CHAMPS, it pays for the salaries of the people
Yep.
working in it and provides for the school play,
And some supply money, a little bit.
little bit,
Yeah.
it's things that they use in CHAMPS. So part of CHAMPS is for pay, right? Kids use it more like a childcare and they pay to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then for our students, there is the talent show, there is the play. I think there may be a basketball team.
So
for
is
some
it the
period of
grant
time.
and the revenue
Oh,
that we utilize to?
Yep, it is like self-funding.
Yep. And no other after-school programs?
District funded, no, I'm not missing anything, right?
No clubs, nothing. Just Champs. It's a tough one, isn't it?
I mean, I think the biggest concern for everyone is what we present and what we put out there. Like, we can't afford to go through another cycle of getting voted down one or two times, three times. I think the record is 7 in this town. We can't afford that. So, no, we have to know that we're putting our best proposal out there, and hope and pray. I mean, that's what I worry about. If we put out this budget and the town of selectmen approve it and we put it to vote and we get voted down, all right, now how much comes off of that? And then it gets voted, we can't afford that, right? So I think the worry is, are we putting out something that's gonna get voted the first time?
How much money do we set aside for the security people? Security guards?
Security officers.
Two security,
we had them
how much was that?
itemized.
We're at 225,263 is all the positions added this year. That's the two safety, security monitors, the cafeteria monitors.
You itemized them out, didn't you?
So the security folks are up $72,468.
72,468.
Yes.
So if you
That's
chose
for
not
one?
to do that, we
For
would.
one?
No,
That's
for
for
two. That's both together. So if you said, you know what, we can't afford this, we won't have safety and security officers, then you would subtract 72,000, whatever she said, from the budget.
You had itemized it before, too. The kindergarten teacher, was that 65,000?
That is,
And it's an average, of course.
part of
Yeah.
it is, because we didn't want to be identifying people.
Right.
So, $70,000.
70. And then the BCBA?
BCBA is, 29,000.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's it.
59.
Okay, and then the CAF monitors?
Cafeteria monitors are
grant.
44,745.
What? That's a different.
That's for, how many monitors?
3,
3?
right?
No,
Well, it added up to like 3. The reality is, it's just for a very small piece of the day. It is actually, I think we said 3 human beings, but it's not like 3.0 of a position
Right.
because they're there for an
Part-time.
hour and a half, 1 hour, I think, an hour and a half at Hinsdale. I think it was more like 2.5 at Pearson.
Do we have any parent volunteers? Parent volunteers?
For cafeteria
4? We
duty.
do?
For cafeteria
Period.
monitoring?
No?
You just have to be able to commit to consistency. Thank you, Mrs. Markwell.
Yeah. On the budget, it says, I know we just asked the question about the safety school guards, the school safety guards. It's a line item at 72,468. Is that what you said, Nance?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just asking because in the newspaper article, it said it was 225,263.
I think that's the full amount of that account line.
All those positions.
with all those different people. Yeah.
Oh, that's including Gilbert?
BCBA.
No.
No,
The consultant.
That's the kindergarten teacher, BCBA, school safety officers, and the
Oh,
cafeteria
okay.
monitors collectively, those
the-
4.
And then our, okay, good, thank you.
So, you know, we're gonna be in pain this Friday or this, I mean, this is, we don't have time set aside for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of this week, right? We're gonna be in this same position Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday if we do nothing tonight. We might know more information about the EC excess cross grant, but that's probably being conservative, $45,000, maybe $50,000, but we're still in the same position. So does anybody have any offers for other cuts?
We're also waiting on information from Gilbert, no? I mean, have we even heard anything from them yet?
So I will meet with Greg tomorrow.
Okay.
I met with Greg the first time the motion was made, albeit maybe slightly different language. The intent was clear,
Yeah.
I think, in terms of wanting to seek efficiencies and collaborations. We did meet. Since that time, Gilbert has passed their budget, declined to share a nurse. That would be a 10,000 reduction for us, you know, to cover subs. Given that their budget is already passed, I don't anticipate significant financial differences. Also, when Greg and I spoke, the kinds of things that we saw weren't things that we control so much. Like we said, we could approach Power School and say, hey, we're not really one district, but we're kind of one district, we want a discount. And they might, but we won't have that, you know, that, to get a company to give you money off isn't necessarily something we're gonna know in just a matter of days or two. We thought we could do that with Power School, with Frontline. Ed Advanced manages both of our kitchens, but none of those are gonna be, you know, I feel awful for the position you're in. I completely understand, and if the guy before me hadn't already cut all the things, I'd be offering up far better ideas. So I know you're looking for ways, but any of those things might yield, you know, $5,000 savings, $10,000 savings. None of them are going to be that big gift that we all wish would just come. There isn't a lot, you know, the biggest redundancy between our budget and Gilbert's is 2 superintendents, honestly. That's, like, I look at that and I say, there's a chunk of money.
Right.
Everything else is like little pieces, couple thousand here, there. You know, we are separate financial entities, so could you do one business office for both? Probably not. I mean, you still have all of the accounts payable, all of the accounts receivable, all of the state reporting. But we really have sort of, like, I've walked through every line of our budget with the question, is there some way to do something where, and first of all, it would have to come out of our budget, not Gilbert's, because theirs is voted and they've indicated no interest in reducing. You know, we talked about a school medical advisor. Could we get one of the two schools' medical advisors? One gets 4,800, one gets 8,000. So even if we were able to keep the price of one of them, you're looking at cutting 5,000 or 6,000. You know, if you wanted a motion to reduce this budget by $10,000 in anticipation of efficiencies from all of the companies we approach, and we cross our fingers and hope, and we will approach the companies. I mean, I love to strike a good deal. But I don't think any of them are gonna yield substantial money.
Go ahead. I just wanted to go back to 611, instructional supplies. Is there any sort of hard, fast rule? If we take a look at, there's certain consumables that we need to preserve, but is there any possible way we can allocate like a formula to cut this budget by, say, I don't know, 10% across the board? Would yield us $5,000, that's nothing. I just go back to that because we're gonna get the Title I grant monies.
Which is part of the assumptions going into it. You know, we have that in our thoughts going into it. If that, again, if that's something that makes people feel, you know, on this board, at least like you've really done everything you can, then I would say to you, we'll make it work. I think Renee was right when she said, you know, the parents will send notes to the parents, please send in sticky notes and tissues. You know, I mean, that's happens in schools everywhere. And we'll make it work. I've met our teachers. They will make anything work if that's what they need to do. So, again, you know, if we allocate a little bit less for supplies, the doors will open, the children will come, and they will learn.
What's 10%? 57,000, it's $5,700?
Yep. And we can't really do anything about those first few, the bigger items, because we need the math workbooks, we need the science consumables are the things. It's the straws, the Q-tips, the cotton balls that go into the science experiments. It's the parts that have to be replaced every year. So the math books, the language arts pieces, and the science stuff, that's gotta happen. And again, if we buy less glue sticks, rulers, and erasers.
And just for clarity, so these supplies for the classrooms, there's like 4 grade 1s, 4 grade 2s. So you're talking like $500 per classroom for supplies, right? Just
Which
peanuts.
isn't exactly how it plays out. I mean, there is a big, long shopping list that, you know, we asked everybody, what do you need and want? And then I kind of looked at it and tried to zip it up a little because you really didn't want to look at how many glue sticks we're buying for $1.49 a piece. But this is based on what the teachers actually need to do their jobs. But again, if that level of a cut helps you go out to your community and say, we have literally scraped the bottom of the barrel and this is where we are, then by all means. I mean, I do want you, as much as you hate the number, to know that it is sort of the bare minimum to do what we do.
I have kind of an inquiring question. Why does the Department of Public Works for the town not do the landscaping and snow removal for our schools, seeing as how that's part of their, I was just curious if anybody
You
knows
missed
that.
Yeah, you missed that question last, I asked that last
Oh,
week.
you did?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I mean, there, DPW, in every district I've ever worked in, the town, if
Does
it's
the
a,
school parking lot?
well, it's the school, the town owns the school.
I think the answer to that was
Manpower.
they're willing, they just won't get us open for the delay. You know, by the time they do all those hills and roads and, I mean, we could re-explore for sure. We budget $48,000 for plowing. Did I make that up? Maybe that's Gilbert's line.
It's about 32,
32.
yeah.
Um,
But they, I mean, they've been very straightforward. They don't have the equipment, actually.
They don't have snow plows.
They don't have the equipment and the people to do all the work that needs to be done to guarantee that if it snows during the night and we want a regular opening, that we can open on time, or if there's a delay.
I know
So-
they're out.
Well, I
with
mean,
the salt already.
we routinely do 3-hour delays now, so.
So like that last time when we did a 3-hour delay and literally no one else did, and I was a little bit mortified. The reason we did 3 is, Mark, right? Phil was not well, Mark is the other man, I believe, said, we're out of salt. We weren't able to, go out before and do, so we're never gonna be cleaned up and ready.
It just feels like that's a very large, 32,000 just for the snow plow or snow removal, and then I'm assuming we also pay for landscaping.
No.
We don't pay for landscaping.
So they do the snow plowing, they also will sand and salt the parking lots. The town does, the road that runs through Hinsdale.
Yep.
That we use as a driveway.
Yeah,
And then, we contract out for the parking lots. Our custodians do the sidewalks,
yep.
at both schools.
What about lawn care?
And lawn care is the custodians, the facility staff. They've got the lawnmowers and the weed whackers and, and they go out and they weed the gardens.
Rumor has it one time Mel was out there with a lawnmower. She was.
I don't doubt that.
I'm just going on record, I'm not that
Yeah,
girl.
I don't want you
I
to.
am not pushing the lawnmower,
I'm not willing to
sorry.
take that workers' comp case.
I love this job. I don't mow my own lawn. I am not mowing the lawn.
Okay, that was just an inquiry. Thank you.
The question about, or the proposal of possibly charging for general ed pre-K,
Yeah.
is that done in most districts?
My district does it. We
I-
charge 2,000 for the year.
2,000 for the year, so what is that? So that's 200 a month, so $50 a week. I don't know your community, but is that, like,
It's a wealthy community.
Yeah.
it is a wealthy
So
community,
I can't see, I mean, that's gonna limit families that will,
And the whole
Send their
point of
kids.
doing this is so each child has a gen ed mentor that they're partnered with, usually for mentoring purposes and different things. So it's a need to have gen ed students in the pre-K program.
Right. We also, I think, see it as critical to success in kindergarten because ideally we would like every Winchester child to, whether it's in our preschool or Winstead area childcare or bases or at Advance Head Start, we have all of our programs and then all of those wraparounds in the hopes that every child will have some kind of preschool experience. And I know the state is still kicking around the idea of by whatever year, they want every district to provide universal
we
preschool.
can.
But districts say, where will we put all these children? We don't have the space and there's no funding to build the buildings. But I know it is still believed best practice that every child have a preschool experience. I haven't been here long enough to truly know what the level of need is in the community. Charging some amount is not uncommon, but if people can't afford it and it keeps kids out, then
Right.
we've sort of cut off our nose to spite our face. And there's some point at which, like if you charged less per week, there's a point at which the amount of work that would go into getting a billing system that's a point of sale and chasing people for the money would outweigh the benefit. You'd end up. So, and I just don't have a good enough pulse on the community's ability to pay for those spots and if they would. And that's a hard one. I mean, if you send a survey and say, if we charged, would you pay? Who's going to say yes?
Yeah.
I have another question. Were you able to look at the benefits? Remember the idea that you tossed around and I said, as long as it's legal, it's
So it's legal. The piece I don't yet have an answer to is how would it work out for people in terms of being a qualifying event so that if they wanted to accept our offer, I think probably some people's open enrollment would be July 1. So if we launched something this spring, anyone who can have open enrollment July 1 would be able to take us up on that. Otherwise, if their other enrollment, is an open enrollment twice a year or just once?
Once.
So if their spouses or their parents company only offers it January 1. I've not yet been able to ascertain that our offering them to hop off would count as a qualifying event. It
Yeah.
likely would.
Usually it's marriage, divorce, adoption, birth, death,
Right. Loss of benefits.
yeah, things of
But
that
would
nature.
an insurance opt-out be a qualifying event? Probably
Probably
not.
No, not that I've ever
So
seen.
the other thing too is that that's not a guarantee anyway. A faculty member can say yes and then decide a month later
Right.
no, so we can't bank on that either. It's creative, but it's not gonna help us tonight, it's not gonna help us next week. Neither would pre-K general ed charge. It's not gonna help us necessarily tonight. You don't exactly know your numbers.
Oh, no, it's a
You know?
risk.
Yeah,
It's a
total
risk
risk.
to bet on that.
Yep, yep. Are there any other motions or, well, amendments to make any further cuts?
So I think that at this time, I'd like to say we make the amendment to not hire the 2 school cafeteria monitors.
That would be cutting $44,745 out of the budget.
Correct.
44,000 for 2 cafeteria workers?
Yes, because there's 3 and they're part-time and
It's all of the hours
for the whole year. 90 minutes, part-time,
and their benefit. No, they wouldn't.
No
have benefit.
They don't have
benefits,
any
probably
benefits. It's
minimum
hourly
wage or
wage.
close to it.
Benefits are in there too.
3.
There are
Three of
benefits
them.
there?
Security, that kind of stuff.
No, for the cafeteria monitors.
There's benefits in there, the social security and,
She
Oh,
means
those
insurance
kinds.
benefits.
But not-
Sondra's trying to say something too.
Right,
not insurance.
not insurance, just the usual stuff that's unavoidable.
So that's an amendment to reduce the current motion by $44,745,000.
I'm going to keep going.
Okay. Additionally,
Additionally, I will say we could take it to one, say, I know it's not Tom Dillon's, what he had said, but we could go to 1 school safety officer. That he'll have to rotate 1 day here, 1 day there, and maybe we can afford the other one next year, or,
so divide that 72,468 by 2, how much is that?
35, 36.
Hold please 1 second. Nancy, on our shared worksheet,
it's 81, yes,
Yeah.
164. I readjusted it for the benefits, yes.
Wait a minute.
okay.
Yeah.
So half of the 81, 164, got it.
All right, so what's half of, so I'm just following,
Working, hold please.
okay.
I think it's 40,008,
40,582.
yeah.
40,582.
Before you make a final motion and vote, we will take a 2-minute pause where you all ignore us so that we don't feel pressured and we double check our
Do the
math.
math. 1 SRO. So, go ahead.
Also, the entire, page 15, the entire page 15. 734, technology hardware, it's the Chromebooks, 40 Chromebooks, 2 smart boards, 4 monitors, 5 laptops. You could say save the printers, you probably need a printer more than anything, right, I would say, but it's only $1,000, so.
So what are you saying? Leave the printers?
Save the,
I'm sorry, what
Where are you?
is
I'm
it?
on 734.
Page
734
15.
And okay,
15.
734
Tech
is
hardware.
25,000.
The whole page,
Except for the 1640?
except for the 1640 the 1640 is the lowest number there. I'm just really going through the smart boards and the Chromebooks. Oh, is the laptops, is the 5 laptops, is that for staff?
Yes.
Okay, so just on the smart boards and the Chromebooks there.
So 20,000.
So that'd be a 20,000.
So far, it's a $205,000 cut, given the 1,000 expectation that Julie entered.
and then another 105-ish, right?
Can we do one at a time and vote on them one at a time? Because
Got a lot there in that package.
there's a lot there. Like, I would be in agreement with a couple of those, not all of them. So I think we should, like, could we separate it out so that way we could, like, vote on each of what you're proposing, Tori? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, and as you do that, remember that there's a motion, let's think about our Robert rules for a minute, right? We have a motion on the table. You can make a motion to amend that motion, and then you would need a second. So you say, for example, I'm making a motion to amend the main motion by further reducing it by X amount of dollars. You'd get a second, and then you would vote on whether or not to amend the main motion.
To amend the amendment. To vote on the amendment.
Well, no, if you're amending the main motion, then then it changes that first motion, and ultimately you'll be voting on a new and improved reduction.
After.
Right, because you've
Yeah.
never voted on that first 100.
Correct.
That's what's on the table.
Correct.
But isn't Renata's motion still on the table?
It is, but if somebody amends my motion, if Tori amends my motion with a cut, then we can vote on that amendment.
Got it.
So this is, yep, well, okay, but then there's a request that you itemize. I mean, he doesn't have to, we can vote on his cut, the amendment. So the motion, main motion is to cut 100,000, but then the amendment to that is one SRO at 40,000, page 15 at 20,000. Am I correct? Am I missing anything? Tori? Julie's cut, one SRO, page 15.
Oh, cafeteria.
Oh, cafeteria, my bad, okay.
20,000 technology.
All right, yep, 20,000 plus the row above. Okay, so the cafeteria monitors too. And they were 44.
I'm just so darn frustrated because I know we need all of this, we just don't have the money for it.
So your cut right now, your proposed.
And I think I would just caution that, the things that Tori is digging into are some of the things that I referenced when you asked me, what's your contingency if, it hits the fan? And I'll just remind us that if we end up back here because the selectmen, never even mind getting to a vote, but if the selectmen say reduce, at that point, we're at humans. I mean, Nora found, she said, well, what if we take 5,700 out of supplies? That isn't gonna be what the selectmen would ask for. If they're
I
gonna
agree.
bother to ask, it's gonna be a real number. And we will have taken sort of this first line of things that we don't wanna give, and they're gone, and then we really are at people, just so we're understanding.
I don't even know how we could be at people, in a sense, right? If the selectmen, in your example, say, give us $250,000 or $500,000 back, what people, and I'm not asking for names, but what people would it even be? Like, if we don't have any staff as it is, where would we pull it from? Like, would we just get rid of I can't even, I don't even know.
It would hurt a lot. We would be looking at class sizes going up significantly higher than they are in the Gilbert grades. We'd be looking at maybe give up like a social worker, which is so contrary to common sense because we've got kids, falling out all over the place and needing that support. I'm looking at my list of like, if you asked me what I was gonna say, my cafeteria monitors are gone. To get to many hundreds of thousands, it changes the way we do business significantly. And again, our class sizes are based on caps, it's 24 in the upper grades. We'd be at that and above, which of course then starts to slippery slope into paying per kid.
I just wanna kinda get a pulse of where people are at. Can I just move forward with with a vote on my
It could
first and
fail
second
and then we
motion?
could start
Well,
again.
right now we have an amendment, a motion to amend this current budget by an additional cut of $205,000. That includes one SRO, reduction of one SRO, the reduction of smartboards, Chromebooks, and the reduction of cafeteria monitors, a total of $205,000 cut, which would include, well, $105,000 cut as an amendment.
Right, on top of,
And then Julie's 100,000, right now, totally, between both motions, well, the motion and the amendment is $205,000 cut. Then there was a friendly request that, Tori, you've got 3 things here. Would you want to amend your amendment to go through,
Or withdraw and remake.
or withdraw and redo each one separately as itemized?
I don't really want to, but I suppose it, if that's what we're gonna vote on, yeah, we can talk about it. Yes, which one do you wanna see gone, Renee?
Which one I want to keep. Can I tell you which one I want to keep? Because I like to keep it positive. As a teacher, I know how important those Chromebooks are to these kids. I really,
Me
really,
too.
really do. Like, that technology, man, that's where we're headed. Like, that's our future right there. I don't want to let that go.
Right.
But the other two, it would be painful, but I would go with it.
So did you say withdraw?
But then I'm worried about what Julie just said, because if we have to cut more eventually, like, where's that gonna come from?
Well, we can see.
Am I correct that we do have a grant writer on staff?
We have a lot of grant writers on staff.
Meet Nancy.
We got
So
everybody on
we
staff
don't-
writing
we-
grants.
We don't have a grant writer on
No.
staff. I want to
No.
make that clear
That
for
is
the public, because there's
correct.
been some
Thank you for that.
rumblings that we pay a grant writer.
No, we do
I want to
not.
be clear
No.
Good
that we
point.
don't.
My spare time.
Yes, when is that?
So,
So are you willing to amend your amendment?
Well, I just want to say again, we're not talking about getting rid of every Chromebook we have. This is, hold on, where's the page right here we're on?
15,
Thank you.
I believe.
Yeah. We're talking about 40 Chromebooks, which is a half of a grade level. So,
When's the last time we had money and did a, like, grade level or a half a grade level replacement for Chromebooks?
Not since we first got them.
when we got them 2 years ago, we said, right?
No, it's about 5 years ago.
5 years
COVID,
old.
before COVID.
Yeah, they're old.
In anticipation of COVID?
What's that?
Was like anticipation of COVID?
Well, that plus
you guys were that smart.
testing and everything else we were doing.
Curious question.
I don't think anyone anticipated COVID.
Yeah, right, right.
I did have a parent say to me, you should have.
Jonathan's got a question.
Curious question. If we do replace some Chromebooks, do all 40 have to be replaced? Or can it be somewhere in the middle?
So we have 600 students, give or take, and so, you know, a typical replacement plan is, if you think about them as lasting 5 to 8 years, and so we have 7, I know, that's optimistic of me, but, so K through 6 is 7 grades. We don't use them in the preschool, I don't think at all, I hope. Good, so 7 grades, so if you replace 1 grade each year, every 7, when they are at the absolute
Still
end
looking
game
at
of their
100.
existence, they're getting, you know, you're hitting it at every 7 years. If you're only doing half of that, then you're looking for some of your devices to last twice as long.
Because I hear some of the conditions I believe are worse than others. Some don't have keys broken. Some
Right, so none of them have been replaced yet, basically. So if we start with 40, it will still take us 14 years. Had to think that through a second. It would take us 14 years to work out the oldest of the bunch, which are now 5 years old. So they would then be 19 years old, which they'd be legal to vote and drive and all kinds of good things, but they would not be working for student learning.
They will definitely be obsolete by then.
By then, we'll probably all have something that we're etching in the palms of our hands, and we won't need devices. So, can you do less? Of course you can, but the point is that you've got to keep cycling them, and if it's cut each year, like it seems like, I know it was in the budget last year, and then when things got really tight, it was something that went, because it's an obvious kind of easy pick, right? But the problem is if you just do that year in and year out, eventually we won't have any, because like this year, we barely eked enough to get a device in each kid's hand. I would guess with no replacements by next year, we would not have any choice but to be with what Tori's describing of at least one grade level where there's like one set that gets shared, because I don't think without replacements we would make it.
I was just curious about if a middle ground was possible.
So anything we get will keep us going longer than not at all.
I would suggest looking at the supply line with the 611, because, again, Title I grants of $20,000 in supplies would hopefully be there, as opposed to cutting smart books and Chromebooks.
What if we take a minimal risk, and instead of assuming 20,000 as a potential revenue from Title I, we say maybe 10,000? Nora, that was a question to you.
Okay,
What do you think about it?
it would still leave me at about 10% reduction,
I know.
yeah, $5,700.
Yeah.
That's 25% getting to where you want to be. It's not 20,000, but it's a $5,700 cut, leaving these in place. I'm just concerned that we've invested in iReady and CKLA and all these testings from the state standards, SBAC and all this is done on those products.
Oh,
Be
yeah,
really
I'm not
ugly.
suggesting, I'm certainly not
I'd rather take
suggesting
supply.
cutting them. I'm saying if we take the assumption that we're gonna get something from Title I,
Right?
maybe we can reduce this on the operating budget minimally and just assume some risk. It's a small risk.
Right.
Because we're probably gonna get some funding, we hope.
This is already taking into assumptions, isn't it?
So we build planning to have that 20,000, like it's part of the sauce already, but.
Oh, so I'm sorry, so
Yes.
we need 57 because we really need 77.
That's,
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay. Never mind then.
That said, I support your line of thinking, and I would rather risk 10,000 supply money than the 20,000
Chromebooks.
Chromebook and smart boards. The
I'm
other thing,
concerned operationally if we'll be able to function without the Chromebooks or smart boards. That would be my concern. Again, it's an easy thing that people, and I think we talked about this at our first budget workshop, you know, it's not something fancy. You know, people aren't like, oh, look at this amazing program. But it's something that's necessary in order to function day to day in the education realm that we're in. And I would just be concerned of not supplying those items that are necessary for basic operations for the teachers and students.
and if we do reduce, say, the instructional supply line 611 by a certain percent, it doesn't mean that, I mean, it could mean that they all are reduced by 10%, each of these line items, but you could still shuffle things around based on need.
We'll have to go collect paper clips that are on the floor and.
we do.
I know.
We do. And reuse our manila folders and, I will say, you know, I haven't been here long, so I'm not talking about myself per se. I'll just say I observe that we are very mindful of what we consume and use and reusing. I think there is a mindset across the district of keeping costs low to families. I think even like when we were talking about like supplies and what we send home to parents and charging for preschool, there's a large awareness that the families of our students cannot necessarily supplement their education. Some can, some can't, and how do you figure out who's who? So I think that there is great stewardship, I guess I would say, in the schools of awareness of that and using and reusing and making every dollar stretch as far as it can.
So Tori, what are you thinking?
So,
And there's no second on that, so.
no, there is no second to it.
And I just also want to caution us that we've got about 14 minutes left.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that. So you're,
Modify your proposal to get a second to this instead of that.
was, but we have to
taking
wait and see.
that to 0 to keep them, by taking from here.
Is that correct, Matt?
Let's see, let me go like this. It's that plus that.
Oh,
plus
so
that.
it adds right up for you.
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
that's where we're at tonight, with
Okay.
Julie.
Yeah.
So your proposal is to amend it to that, well, not, I'm gonna change that, wait a minute, originally it was that. But you can just go here,
The one security guard,
right,
3 lunch monitors.
give me a sec.
Let me also ask, just while we're on the Chromebooks discussion, if we reduce the number of Chromebooks, so like we're down and we're gonna split them with the lower grades, they're gonna share them or whatever, like I had said, do we also get a discount in the 14, in the software lines?
So there is.
Not the hardware, but I'm trying to find the page. Like, there's an iReady,
I think it
Well-
goes by enrollment usually.
The iReady, we do a site license currently, so that wouldn't change. The other piece that's sort of tied more directly to the Chromebooks is there is something, I think it's in the systems software, not in the instructional software, probably the one you're on, if that's software.
software and licenses.
There is something that goes with the Chromebooks. The thing of that is, it's still, like, whether we're using new devices or old devices, that's based on the licensing of the devices that are in use. So
The
that
amount.
wouldn't really change.
Okay.
Because if something's not in use, then we're not signing it up per se.
Like Go Guardian's a site license, whether you have 2
Oh,
kids
yeah.
on it, 2,000 kids on it.
Um,
Go Guardian would be something.
somewhere on here.
As a smaller district, we really get a larger financial burden because we don't have the staff or money or anything to really supply, but we're still required to do all of the same things that every other district is required to do. So it does put an additional financial burden on smaller districts like ours to supplement, you know, what larger districts kind of take for granted, unfortunately.
Even within the Gilbert budget, there's $63,000 for Chromebook leases. Like, they're gonna have all brand-new, bright, shiny Chromebooks at every grade. Which, you know, is hard to reconcile. One of the things that we are exploring is how leasing, you know, there's benefits and drawbacks to do that. You need the big expenditure on it, but you're always getting new devices.
Is it true leasing or is it financing?
It said leasing in the paperwork, but
Because if they break, they get, you know, it's a lease. I don't think they're doing the whole school, though.
Oh, no, that's definitely not
Yeah,
the
no.
school.
They're only doing a certain amount.
but it's in there each year.
Yeah.
So it's.
Probably 2
that
grades
cycle
a
we're
year.
just talking
They
about.
probably cycle 2 grades a year,
Yeah.
7th and, you know, 11th or something like
Leaving it
that, and
alone.
then,
Although you hadn't proposed that.
I don't think we're at public comment yet.
Thank you.
If you want to slip a note on Nancy's desk, we'd be happy to peek at it, Mrs. Marquell.
Okay, so we have a request to amend your
Or
proposed.
withdraw and repropose.
All right.
Withdraw,
I thought-
repropose.
Sure, yeah, got it, I see it right there.
Okay, so,
Yes,
okay. He's withdrawing and reproposing.
I will do that.
Okay, so Tori, you will propose an amendment to the original motion by reducing the budget further by 1 SRO at $40,582. Supplies by $5,700. And cafeteria monitors at $44,745. A total amendment of $91,027. So that, with Julie's right now where we stand is $191,027 reduction. So for Tori's amendment to reduce the budget by $91,027 further beyond Julie's proposed $100,000. Do I have a second?
point of clarification.
Yep.
We're not voting on the budget now. We're just
No.
voting on this amendment.
Just this
I
further
will
cut.
second the amendment, the motion then.
Okay. Allison? Okay, so we're voting only on the amendment to further reduce the budget by $91,027, making the total cut to the budget at $191,027. All in favor of the amendment of further reduction of 91,000? Oh, by roll call. Sorry.
Kurt Warner, yes.
Jonathan Moorhead, yes.
Allison Pierce reluctantly, yes.
Tori LaVetri, yes.
Nora McCorsky, yes.
Renee Waldron, yes.
Shane Centrella, yes.
Jeanette Broder, yes.
Sandra Strubar, yes.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion?
That, all those cuts being said, and thank you, everybody, I still really want to see more from Gilbert. Shane, have you had any talkings to, with, since you've made your motion last time around? Are we, where are we on that?
Do you want to wait to item B?
Sure. I mean, we did receive correspondence. I don't know if you saw that from.
I didn't see the correspondence.
Okay, I could read that if you want.
I would love to hear that.
Sure. So, what was that?
Nothing, sorry.
Go ahead. Share with the class.
He's already said he doesn't check his email because he got.
Yeah. I should know better.
Tisk, tisk.
Yes. So from Greg, he had sent this to us. He said, "Good afternoon. This is a formal response to the motion made and passed at your February 20th, 2025 meeting. I appreciate the board's commitment to transparency and its dedication to developing a student-centered, fiscally responsible K-12 budget. We all share the same goal, ensuring the highest quality education for our students while being mindful of our taxpayers. I would like to clarify the concept of the one unified budget. While the Gilbert School appears as a single line item, Winchester does present a unified budget. After months of thoughtful deliberation, beginning with a zero-based budgeting approach, the WL Gilbert School Corporation approved a 3.12% increase, $268,489 increase, totaling $8,868,048, which reflects a balanced approach that prioritizes students while maintaining fiscal responsibility. It should be noted that this budget passed overwhelmingly by an 8-to-1 margin after a thorough dive into both the program and object codes. The lone dissenting vote was Ms. Renata Waldron, who stated that she felt there were cuts to be made, yet did not make any motions to reduce the budget. That said, if the board envisions a budget that is more seamlessly structured as a unified K-12 system, I welcome discussions on ways to enhance clarity and accessibility. One possible approach could be the development of a universally applied program and object codes, along with detailed spreadsheets that allow both the board and the community to view the budget at a more granular level. Thomaston Public Schools, a district comparable in size to Winchester, offers a model worth considering. For reference, here's the detailed budget. I do not have that with me, but he did provide that in an attached document. I look forward to working together to ensure transparency and alignment in the budgeting process.
So do we only have
That's
one
from
vote
Greg.
on the Gilbert School?
No, there's 4 of us.
Well, there's
There's
three.
three of us.
So
and there's a
3 people
community
voted for this?
representative.
No, he said it passed overwhelmingly, so 3 people
Yep.
from this board voted yes, and 1 person voted no.
No.
Two votes.
Two.
From
Two
this
to one.
board
Yep.
voted yes, and 1 person voted no.
Okay.
But that was the response to the original motion.
Yep, I saw
Because we
it.
had asked for his correspondence.
I
so,
read my emails.
yeah.
Tori gave you guys cookies. You have to be nice to him.
We like to bother him.
With that being noted, I think one of the key takeaways and one of the things from the original motion that was passed last week, I did not add it because I was obviously significantly late. Apologize for that. The original motion that I had brought to our meeting last week was succinct, but I think one of the things that was asked for by Greg, and again, he accepted the request in that motion, But one of the things that I think stood out to me was he was looking for more detail. That's what it said in that third paragraph. Again, just asked for more granular detail in order to have a K through 12 budget that resembled that of a similar sized district, in his belief, that was Thomaston. So again, it's not on the floor to add a motion, and it wasn't up for discussion. But again, not to repeat or and I know time is of the essence because we have to be here at what, 6:45?
You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. So we have a revision, or not even a revision, because at this point we can't amend or revise. How do we, because I don't think we're done with this conversation, regardless of any motion, but I don't think, I don't think we have the time sufficient. We need more time to be able to discuss and come to a conclusion.
Okay,
as a board.
we have a fork in the road.
Yep.
We have a motion on the floor, which is a full motion to cut the budget for $191,027.
Yep, understood.
That exists.
Yep.
And it
We-
passed.
It has
No.
not passed.
Oh, I'm
Hasn't even
sorry.
been on-
It has been first and seconded, we're in
Understood.
discussion, we made an amendment to it to further cut it.
Got it.
So that main motion is still on the floor right now. We can move into voting procedure on that main motion to cut this current budget 191. Conversely, we're running out of time, we can migrate, we can call a recess to migrate and continue this conversation. We will be off the air, if you will.
But the blue room is
I
available.
don't think that that's ideal, but I think that's, in my personal opinion, I don't think we're done here. So I think we should, just because we're running out of time, rushing it through doesn't solve the problem.
For matters of the budget, I'd like to see the community be able to see it. I'm sure there are people watching this. I would hope anyway. Maybe they're not, but
But if
I
we
would
move
hope
it-
there's people watching this.
Well,
so-
we have a motion on the floor, so we have to address that motion.
Sure.
So we have to vote.
We can vote on
We
that.
really, we have to put it to vote.
have
We have
to
to
vote.
call the motion. We have to call the motion. Okay, so the motion is to cut the current Winchester Board of Education budget by $191,027.
And propose a budget of $24,052,838.
52,000, sorry, 24,000,
$24,052,838 as the Winchester Board of Ed requested budget to the town.
So then we'd be voting, we're voting on the budget then.
right.
All right, so I will make a motion to dismiss the motion, to
Wait,
dismiss the.
you can't. Right now, it's Renee, and I've seconded it.
Okay.
So we're voting on it. So, all those, all
We have to
those
do
in,
roll call.
yeah, we have to do roll call, my apologies. All those in favor of cutting the current budget to 191,000,
Well, you would just say,
027.
May
Roll
I
call.
just ask for clarification? We are just voting on this initial cut. We are not voting on the budget and accepting it, correct?
We are voting on the budget and accepting it.
Okay, I thought we weren't going to do that, but okay.
That's the current motion that Renata made.
Our motion is to accept it with those cuts.
Correct. The motion is to accept it, send it to the town manager, send it
Okay.
with these cuts.
I'd like further discussion on this before us voting on it tonight. That's the last thing I'll
Still
say.
have to vote.
You still have to vote at this time. Okay?
Abstain.
Right. Voice vote. Kurt?
Kurt Warner, no.
John Moore, no.
Allison Pierce, yes.
Tori Lavetrine, no.
Nora McCarski, yes.
Renee Waldron, yes.
Shane Centrella, no.
Jeanette Broder, yes.
Sandra Strubar, no.
So that's 5 to 4 in favor of no. Motion fails. Okay, so we don't have a budget yet. So, all these cuts, everything we just did, doesn't go further.
No, but it's an initial start, right?
Right. I just want to make sure that's
But
clear.
they would need to be re-proposed, like,
Will they remain in subsequent drafts?
Everything is now, clean slate. But it is, in your head, a draft, right? Okay, it's 6:46. We have an item B, but we probably should convene. We have an item B, which is the Gilbert motion that you added to the agenda.
Sure.
Okay,
Laura, do you think we could do that in a couple of minutes, because the selectmen need the room at 7. We still have almost 15 minutes. That way the public, and we don't have to reconvene.
My understanding is we had to be out of here by 6:45.
So that they could set up.
Right.
They had their papers all on the table when we came in.
How difficult, I know it wouldn't be ideal, because we wouldn't all have microphones, but if you still wanted to make sure that it was public, like, I mean, to live cast something to YouTube, again, not, albeit it's not perfect, but do we have a laptop that we could set up with audio on it, directed, and
We-
like,
I'm not sure.
I don't have one.
In a planful way, we could probably figure that out. We had talked about, could we do like a Facebook Live or something? We can't get to the town's Winchester YouTube
why not? Was there
because it's
just like
going to
a-
be broadcasting the meeting that's here.
Got it.
I think you have to do that with like a secret code and a login, and I think it's one at a time.
I think if we do a Zoom meeting on our calendar, WPS calendar, and record the meeting, we might be able to later on put it on the Winchester site, maybe.
Well, this is what I propose. We can have these conversations after we adjourn for a recess to move into the blue room.
And get out of these
Do I have
guys'
to make a
way.
motion?
We promise.
Jonathan, second?
Second, sure.
Kurt, okay. All in favor of migrating recess into the blue room?
Everybody says
It's
aye.
a voice vote. Everyone says.
Yes, aye.
Sandra, yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Renee, yes.
Nora, yes.
Allison, yes.
Where are all the things that were on the table?
Well, I put them over by Nancy, who's sitting over there on that desk, and they were all in a basket. The basket is over on that table.
She'll grab them. Perfectly fine.
Sure, okay.
Sandra, we'll call you right back.
Can we bring our name tags with us?
No, I didn't think you were. I just am a bad lip reader.
Name tags need to go in the. Well, we're staying
We're
here.
still in a meeting.
Okay.
Grant to get new ones, or ask the company to refurbish ones. And there's 3 different things I thought of that, going in with
so
another
far.
school to get a group
Yeah.
buy, and where you get a bigger
Any
discount.
hotter than it already got.
Those are just thoughts.
Thank you, I appreciate
I
that.
don't know if that, well, if you're looking at cutting kids, because you also in the summer, you know, they go home in the summer.
Decodification.
I haven't made it to summer yet.
Yeah.
Sorry to have messed up your place in your meeting.
Budget, you know?
Your agendas that were on.
Well, I get into trouble a lot. You know that, yeah. Yeah.
Some more, but that's okay.
About sort of take them on accident, and then I think these are your materials.
Yes.
Is there anything else?
You know, I hear you there.
I was just gonna bring the name tags over for you.
Yeah, throw them in the desk.
Oh,
Yeah, just throw them on your side.
You're going across the hall.
Oh, they want them over there? Yeah. That's about 5 of them, so maybe that's everything. How are you? Good, hi, how are you? Nice to see you too. I am, oh, so you're here. Yeah, it's fun time, yeah.
I don't tell everybody that. That's good.
He doesn't realize that he walks the dog behind the condo. And it's been device. So the last two times I went out there, he died. And the other thing saving me is I can get in his footprints and I keep my foot.
Take care.
So nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Hello there.
You're moving over to the head seat.
It's not that I don't want to sit by you. I'm sick and tired of that. It's a pain. So how's Lauren tonight? Good?
Thank you. How are you?
Doing well. gift, no collections. No gifts, no. Okay. 47 people are coming. 47? Yeah. So can bring a gift if you want, if not, okay. I'll have to think of something for him.
Mail stripper.
That ought to really shake him up and surprise him, huh?
We still got time.
Casey Karachi, who is our transportation director, Kyle, who's been on that stuff with the committee with us. Took her to Winston last week, we drove all the way around, they showed her all the different things we were talking about. Really, I stopped. Like, I have known it, but when you stop and you like actually look around and you're showing somebody behind town hall here, you know, all the parking that the town
Yeah.
has that so underutilized, snow with cars on it, so I'm gonna bring some of the things to the meeting. We talk about like grant opportunities open right now. I don't know if the town can apply it. It'll depend if we have open application or not for this round. But to bring better sidewalks, improved parking, more lighting back here to increase the parking for Main Street. And then to have some long-term parking there and some short-term parking. I mean, we're trying to come up with some easier solutions, you know, than redesign of Main Street, which we should look at. I have some, I found some online pictures that were kind of cool for us to just like think about, start talking about, and I think we'll put into our, transportation work plan, corridor study for Winston. So, you know, do Main Street, that will be a bigger task.
Well, I was impressed after our last meeting when I saw the empty police cruiser parked on the street. I saw radar being done. I saw actual people getting stopped.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
I had,
He took,
yeah.
Actually, that wasn't a meeting, I guess.
I had heard one, some of this feedback I heard from one person.
enforcement guys.
There was
Hey,
some,
someone's gotta be on the short end of that stick, right? It's
taken
always
out a
me.
lot of, do radar enforcement.
oh,
You didn't pick it up either.
But
thank you.
I saw it there. There's several other ones, so we're not the only ones.
no, I just picked mine up on my way.
I forgot, totally forgot about it.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, when
I
there's
was
no
gonna do it Saturday.
applications, you don't.
Yeah, there was
I'm gonna do
nothing
it
there, so it's
Saturday
like. you
After
got
Shane
everything.
slaved for hours getting those things. I know. Shh, don't tell her, please.
We might have a small meeting tonight. Still early for John.
It's all coming together.
Let's hope. Claudia, can you hear us?
I can.
All right, I gotta get your sound over to the other.
Zoning, change, copy.
Did you start yet? Peter,
Yeah.
can you start?
Not yet. Not till 7. No.
I didn't turn this one off yet.
No, don't touch it. It's been rolling under planning and zoning.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So somebody must have shut us off and turned it back on.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
This is wild.
Yes.
Well, let's see what happens.
Once we get the new tech in both rooms, we won't have these problems, right?
Amen to that.
Yeah,
Let's hope.
yeah.
No, I didn't, because.
Now, Claudia, as we
I think
talk,
they're
can you
gonna
hear
have
everybody in the room
yeah,
okay?
I think some,
Three voice
the original
The joys of a working meeting.
planning and zoning regulations, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, no, it's hard, and that's why I'm hoping that they would. I did review it, but not in that level of detail.
Jim, is your camera on so she can see the? Yeah. Oh, okay, there we go.
See some of them.
Yeah.
Can't see everybody. She can see herself quite well.
Yeah, right. Hey, John. How are you? How you doing? Good.
Right under the radar.
Oh, plenty of time.
How you doing?
You're early there.
I saw all those cars out there, and I was like, they can't be here.
Well, Board of Ed was in here, we had to kick them out.
Like, they can't all be here for
Across
this
the
meeting.
hall, yeah.
We don't have that much going on.
Yep. Ready? If you are. You got the recorded already?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call a meeting, February 24th, 2025, Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, Town of Winchester to order. Roll call, Charlene Lavoy, absent excused. We have George Clausen, absent excused, and Scott Eisenlohr is absent. I'll be seating Rista Malenka tonight for George being excused, so we have a full voting commission. There's no public, so there's no public comment. Agenda review, do you have anything, Jeff, or not? We're good?
Nope, we're good.
Any members, nothing for agenda review? Public hearings, we have none. Old business, item A, discussion, zoning regulation change proposal, e-codification of current subdivision regulations.
So as you can see by the setup here tonight, we've asked Claudia to join us directly. So rather than going in between everything, hopefully we can cover enough ground tonight to make some real progress. So we can just start with subdivision regulations if you guys have specific questions. And this is set up as a working meeting, so we'll just kind of fire away and plug through.
Okay. That's good. Claudia, my first question I have, if it's come up with, I'm also an open burning official and fire chief. In the ordinances, it's come up that there is something missing in the open burning ordinance. There used to be, there's always been a $10 fee there. And in the new codified version, there is no fee listed. How does this get rectified, and who does it, and how long does it take to rectify that?
Yes, I did. This came up earlier, and I did a little bit of research. And during the codification of the ordinances, when we did the analysis, we questioned all the fees to see if they were the correct amount. decided to remove the fee amounts. The fees are still in effect, but to change the language saying that the fees were set from time to time by the select board. The open burning fee was a later one, and it wasn't specifically changed. So I asked that in a second round of questions. You're getting more history here than maybe you want. But Josh at the time directed us to remove the fee amount so that it was consistent with all the other treatment of fees in the code, and to replace it with the language saying that the fee was required in an amount set from time to time. So the fee is still in effect, the amount does not appear in the code. That can be changed, but I would consult with your town attorney. Since the Code of Ordinances was adopted, it might require an ordinance to put that fee amount back in. And it would be the only fee amount in the code, since the rest of them were replaced by that language, which is a common thing in codification, to remove the fee amount so that the code doesn't have to be updated anytime a fee amount changes. They're typically, maintained in a separate fee schedule that is revised more informally. So that's what happened with that open burning fee.
Okay, yeah, but just because we have had a resident or a couple of residents question that, they looked at it up and saw there was no fee, and when it came time to get a burning permit, we charged them a fee, and they're kind of bucking it, saying they shouldn't be charged because there's none listed. That was my concern.
It still requires a fee, it just doesn't say the amount.
Nope,
So,
that's fine. No,
yeah,
we'll
whatever the
we'll
amount
push it.
is-
Well, my concern is if in subdivision regulations or our zoning regulations, if once they've been codified and approved by us and gone through public hearing and everything, is there a process, something gets missed or is incorrect that is found? What is gonna be the process to correct that, and how is it corrected? Because does that mean we have to go through our regulations and have a public hearing and meet several meetings to get that corrected? Or will it be corrected by you and your company?
If you find any errors in our work, we correct that at no charge to the town.
Okay.
Right now, the town doesn't have any print books yet, so it's an easy matter for us to update the online version pretty quickly. Once you have print books, there's a little bit more of a lag, as we have to go through the whole print process. But we stand behind our work, so if you find any errors, we will correct those at no charge to the town.
Okay, turn it over, start with Adam.
Yeah, so if we're just transforming this into a different medium, is there any changes made? I mean, I know we're gonna make changes, I could see them already, right? Just based on what's recommended here, but if we're not changing any language, is a public hearing required?
I believe there is language change because of updating to state statutes. So our ordinance, our regulations conform to anything with state statutes, am I correct? Because we do have a public hearing to approve these changes.
Yeah, there were changes made, updating statutes, correcting some language. So I think the best approach would be to treat it just like any other change to your regulations and to have a public hearing.
Yeah, that's what I had been told in the past, so that's the
Okay.
only I'm going by.
We're at the threshold public hearing, so that's good, right? At least
Well,
we
this
have
isn't
that.
a public hearing, we're
Yep.
just discussing it. We have to schedule a public hearing when we're through with our discussion here.
And then, some going through, it's taking some time.
Yeah, takes a lot of time.
And I'm finding some items. I'd also like to understand, to your point too, like let's say we get through the public hearing, but we find some issues or errors. Are those editorial nature, and do we have to go back to a public hearing? Or what decides whether something is minor, major, editorial, and so we get in this do loop, redo loop, right?
I can't answer your question, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Well, any regulation change needs a public hearing.
Yep.
If it's a Scrivener's error, you might not be able to have a public hearing, but depending on when that error was made, if we adopt a language one way and it just got put into the regulations a different way, it can be corrected, but if we adopted it and the language was wrong, we would need a public hearing to change that. So I would just say any any change to the regulation, we need a public hearing.
Okay.
And I apologize for looking distracted. I'm looking for the change to the subdivision regulations that were being proposed. They were relatively minor, but I don't still have them.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, there were just a few changes to subdivision. Let's see.
Yeah, you provided a summary, a one sheet or two sides, one
Yeah.
sheet.
Yeah, there were like five changes. One to correct a department title, very minor corrections. There are a couple of instances of city, we changed those to town. So there's still wording changes. They're not just spelling errors, so the public hearing would be required.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be controversial.
I noticed numbers were removed and spelled out. Was it anything less than 10 is spelled out for a number? Anything over than 10 is a written number? Or, I noticed subtle changes of like removal of Oxford commas, which can add clarity, but I wasn't sure if that was just standard.
Yeah, those are standard style things that we change, just like capitalizing. We have a standard way of capitalizing, so we capitalize town every time it refers to the town of Winchester, capitalizing planning board consistently. So those kind of editing changes were made as part of the codification. They weren't detailed because they aren't really substantive changes.
Yep.
They're style changes.
And then I also wasn't sure too is it's up to us, I guess. Is there were some instances where I think we could point to like the plan of conservation development to guide for subdivisions of open space, and I wasn't sure if we want to add that in as part of the changes too. If we're gonna, I thought that would be goodness in some locations. I'm still going through it too. I'll pass the mic on to anyone else.
John, you got anything?
I'm still going through it. I don't really have anything right at this time.
I have several. We've been passed, these are a list of what I found. Pass it down, take one.
Thank you.
So on this,
Is it on the zoning or the subdivision?
yeah,
We're
under
doing
the,
subdivision right now, we're discussing.
I was looking at zoning.
Okay.
And on page 13, pergolas was crossed off. I was wondering why they were crossed off.
Could you repeat that, please?
It says under, on page 13, decks, patios, pergolas was there, that's crossed off, terrace steps is needed for building access and accessibility features.
That was in the subdivision regulations?
Yeah.
Okay.
Zoning regulations.
Zone, 'cause that was in the zoning regulations. We're talking subdivision regulations right now.
Oh, okay, well,
Nope.
okay, I guess I'm not in
We'll went for the,
subdivision.
we went for the goals.
Yeah, no, we're just doing zoning right now. That'll be the next discussion
Okay, all right,
in a few
I'm
minutes, so.
not in the subdivision.
Yep, sorry about that.
I can make a general statement, though, that applies to both the subdivision and the zoning. Any of those substantive changes that are listed in that detailed red line document that we provided to you, those were changes that the town directed us to make during the course of this project. Early in the project, I don't even know how long ago it was anymore, we provided an editorial and legal analysis to the town and asked a bunch of questions about the subdivision and zoning regulations with some options for making changes, check boxes and everything. And the town checked off answers, and then we incorporated those responses into the text, and that's what's reflected in those red line changes. So we would have deleted pergolas because the town directed us to delete that.
My question is, how does the town have that authority? That comes under the Planning and Zoning Commission. Because these are our regulations.
I don't know what process was followed on your just going through the minutes, I did see one meeting a couple years ago, probably now, where it looked like the commission was going through the analysis or some version of it. So I don't know exactly what process was followed, because I know there have been some personnel changes on your end as well. So I don't know who made those decisions.
Krista, do you have anything on subdivision?
No, I don't, I was looking for my copy, but when I did review them, I didn't have any comments, and I would,
I had reviewed them, I didn't either myself on the.
yeah, so I would be comfortable setting that for a public hearing. I was just looking up
Okay.
if anybody else was.
Anybody else got any more discussion on subdivision regulations? Going once, twice?
Did we make a motion to schedule a public hearing?
That'll be, yeah, we can. I'll take a motion. What do you got for a date, Jeff, for?
Want to do the 24th?
That's what we were talking about. Yeah, I would recommend no earlier than the 24th because we need to refer it out to the COG.
Oh, okay. So March 24th?
Yep.
Do you prefer, do you think April 14th gives you more time to do the legal noticing that you need?
That too, sure.
Okay, let's do that.
So I'll make a motion to set a public hearing for April 14th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Unanimous?
April 14th?
April 14th,
The next meeting, second
Or-
Tuesday, or second Monday?
public hearing on the zoning regulations change for e-codification of current subdivision regulations. Yes. Okay, 5B, discussion zoning regulation change. Proposal e-codification of current zoning regulations, including any amendments since adoption. Will,
Back
it's
to
yours.
me.
I'll let you start. How's that?
So, pergolas, why they removed was one of my questions, and I don't know what staff or what part of the town removed them from that list there.
I do remember, and it's at least 2 years ago when these were discussed. And there was a whole lot of discussion about pergolas, but I don't remember what the outcome or what the final discussion was, what decisions were made there, so I'm of no help.
And then it goes to page 15, site plan requirements. The site plan minor and site plan majors have been removed.
I don't know why this was in here, but this was one of the things I had brought up a while back.
There was some discussion on
And
that
saying
also.
that maybe we should eliminate the site plan major and site plan minor, but if we do that, we need to make sure that we add in some kind of waiver provision, so for smaller site plan applications, they don't have to come up with the lighting and the landscaping plan.
Right.
And so I would be okay with that change, but I don't see a waiver provision. So that means any minor site plan would have to completely comply with all of the requirements of the site plan, which I don't think we want.
Is it possible that, let me look here in my documents, the text that was taken out defines the terms, and I'm just wondering if that was duplicate information.
No, because it didn't appear anywhere else in the,
Yeah, I believe it.
in the
doesn't appear anywhere
description
else.
for defining it.
One of the things we strive to do during codification is to point out any duplicate provisions, because you don't want to have the same definition necessarily in two parts. In two places, that's how inconsistencies creep in. So I'm just wondering if the definition section that I'm scrolling through to look.
Because on page 16, under B, it said the site plan submissions, the commission at its discretion may require an applicant to submit either a minor site plan or a major site plan, as those terms are defined in 415-53 of the regulations. And 415-13 is where it's being taken out of. No, it isn't, excuse me, that's, it's 22.
But I don't see it added.
Yeah, it's taken out of 415.22, the definition. The
Yep.
definitions are taken out
Yep.
because they appear in 415.54.
54,
change was, we would have suggested the change to eliminate the duplicate information, and then the decision was made, yeah, that is a good decision. So that's why that text, it looks like a big chunk of text, but it was redundant. And any of these changes at this point in the project, any of them can be undone without any formal action, because we're still in the draft stages. So if any of these changes you no longer want to make, you can just let me know and we can undo those changes.
So I'm looking, okay, never mind, found it.
Yeah, my copy goes up to 415.51, and that's it there.
Well, because they're existing definitions, so we
Yeah,
don't need
okay.
to add them. But that's something I would, once we get through codification, something we might want to consider looking at, so we don't have to define the differences, we can just add a waiver.
You want to be careful with waivers.
Well,
though.
or whatever the
But,
word we
yeah,
use.
we can look at options, yep.
Okay,
Done with that one?
page 19.
So
is the next one.
19, the commercial stables are in our zoning regulations as being legal in rural residential, permitted, and they're not addressed here.
So in 415.31, our district should be added.
Yes. I believe so.
No, just P&I-T with a PI district, RR should be added to that.
Permitted or a special permit for them in the rural residential. But I think that should be special permit.
Oh, special permit, yes.
So it should be special permit in the town gateway
Town
and
gateway
rural
district.
residential.
Yeah.
Special permit in town gateway and in resident, oh, it's already
Yeah,
special permit.
town
in
gateway
Salisbury,
is,
so-
town gateway is there. We just need rural residential added after that.
I can make that change.
And then on page 24, the definition of campsite. And see, I don't quite understand it because it says the parcel of land developed or designated planning area in which the land development project is located on which one occupied recreational vehicle may be legally maintained in an approved campsite as part of a commercial recreational facility. Now, I was just wondering why only one, and why aren't tents mentioned as part of a campsite?
That's a policy decision on the commission's
I mean, that's a brand new,
side.
definition.
Did that come
Right,
out of the regulation somewhere?
We may
So-
have provided samples, and that is probably the one that the town chose.
I can understand the one occupied recreational vehicle per campsite, but I think should allow a tent also.
Should have a tent, and we do have,
Or tent. Should not be, it should be or, because it should be limited to one per campsite. Whether it be a tent or a recreational vehicle, I believe.
Well, tents, you could have multiple tents with no
Right,
problem.
but do you want multiple tents on one campsite?
You can, because you got one for parents and one for the kids.
Suppose.
But the recreational vehicle could be, I mean, generally that's up to the owner or to the regulations. Now, we have regulations on camping.
Right.
Where are regulations on camping?
It's under commercial recreation. It'd be, page
campsites may be occupied by a tent or recreational vehicle, but not by any type of permanent building.
But see, that definition's in conflict with the regulation.
Right.
Would you like me to research some additional campsite definitions that you could consider instead of this one?
Well, I think if it corresponded to our regulation more, it would be better.
See what I can find. So it should definitely allow tents. No more than one recreational vehicle, correct?
Yeah, we can go
Correct.
with that.
Yep.
No permanent structures or probably no structures of any kind.
Not on the campsite, no.
Any limit on the number of tents?
Any limit on the number of tents, Will, you?
My feeling would be two.
I think so. 2 maximum,
Two maximum, one for.
depending on family.
You could also limit it with one family, 2 tents maximum. One family per site.
That gets tricky with the word family. You know, what if me and my friend and take her kid and my kid, that's 2 families, there's only 4 of us. I wouldn't get into that language.
All right.
But what are we talking about here for, like, how do we use these? If this is a campsite within a campground, that's very different to me. I don't know what I'm just trying to figure out how are we using this definition will determine how we wanna, what we want it to be for a definition.
Do we need that definition?
You get into structures, a lot of these
Because
campgrounds.
it's already all in our regulations. Do we need that definition? I'm a big one for definitions. I think they make things a lot easier. But if we're struggling with that definition, maybe we should just go to what's stated in the regulation and if we need a definition.
So see, my regulations don't have the whole thing. I go from,
Well, I think part of it is reading the commercial recreation section versus the definition of
my
campsite.
regulations start here. I don't have this whole page.
Mine is the same way, Mister. I don't have either. Mine.
Okay.
Copy Lance has given me some.
I have a PDF. You
Yeah,
have
the
your campsite
definition
design
just
criteria
fleshes
over here.
out the regulation that's in
What's the date?
41531
June 2022?
D7.
Yeah, 30th,
Rental campsites.
The definition could be slimmed down to just refer to the parcel of land being developed.
You got 74 right here. You got campsites may be occupied by a tent or recreational vehicle, but not by any sort of permanent building
Yeah, page 72.
on 74.
Yeah, we're finding that we have a discrepancy between the 2 versions of the current regulation between us too.
I do
One
too.
more reason to codify.
Well, yeah, but we want to make sure that's
Yes,
included in
yes,
it.
yeah. I've got the
Absolutely.
campsite definition in the one that's on the website.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't go to the town website. I hadn't hard enough time going through all of this. Trying
You
to
must
go
have got
from
the good version.
3 and 4 different ones, you know?
Basically, page 72, the commercial recreation, part 4, G, rental campsites.
Yeah, G, yep, rental campsites, yep. My G is location, materials of construction, and so on.
Right.
So it's, yeah.
So then, on page 24, the definition of a multifamily dwelling was crossed off, eliminated. I was wondering why.
Look at this. 70, 71, 70. What's some-
Yeah, I'm also I'm looking at different versions than you're looking at, so.
My version's updated 2/3/25.
Mine too. And one family dwelling also is crossed off.
Yeah, one family dwellings crossed off, multifamily dwellings crossed off.
I'm wondering if there's already a definition in, let me jump to those definitions.
Yeah.
It's likely that those were again duplicate definitions. Just looking to see if there's, yeah, there's a separate definition of multifamily dwelling and one-family dwelling. So rather than having, just flipping it and repeating it, the decision was made to, and not the decision was made by the town to delete dwelling multifamily because multifamily dwelling is already a definition, and the same with one-family dwelling. Again, removing some redundancies.
So why wasn't the two-family dwelling removed then?
There must not have been
There's a
duplicate
definition, there's a definition on page 97.
So,
Dwelling two-family duplex.
Right, because there is not a separate definition of two-family dwelling.
A detached dwelling designed for or occupied by two dwelling units. Okay. It says amended at time of codification, modified at time of code adoption. So it's in the definitions exactly as it's written here. If we're crossing off multifamily and one family, why don't we cross off the two-family also?
well,
I'm trying to figure this out, the logic here.
I think, so I see what they're doing. So we
Say
have it, yeah. So I see that, well, now I don't have, where is that?
It's right here.
Page 97?
This is in this year. This is what got me off. I spent hours flipping back and forth between these pages.
Yeah, because we've got,
There's,
I look at the one that's online, so I'm probably not even looking at the right one.
there was originally
You're not.
two definitions of dwelling multifamily and two definitions of dwelling one family, but only one definition of dwelling two family. So at the end of the day, the definition section only includes one definition of each of those terms. That meant that the duplicate definitions of multifamily and one family were deleted.
I don't know where the definitions are for those two.
So,
so back to our 108, 110, and this big one.
I think,
That's where all the definitions are.
I think that the definitions, I like dwelling, comma, single-family dwelling, comma, two-family dwelling, comma, multifamily.
Multifamily,
All under D, and if you look
under dwelling, yes.
under dwelling, but if you look at the I just had it here, so let me go back and try to find it.
Because otherwise you're looking three different places for,
Yeah, and if you look at the definition of, the current definition of multifamily dwelling that they're keeping, doesn't really make sense. I like the definition they crossed off better. Which is a building or portion thereof containing more than 3 dwelling units that cannot be classified as a single-family dwelling. Where the one that's in the regulations is not less than 3 dwelling units in a building or group of buildings and uses accessory to such multifamily, I mean, I guess,
What page is that?
131. So maybe just compare what the
definitions are and pick the best one.
And I agree, it makes a lot of sense to put all the dwelling definitions together, and we can rearrange them.
Yeah.
If you just let us know if we need to put in a different definition, we can make sure that they're all together.
Yeah, because you've got the congregate dwelling, you've got single-family dwelling and two-family together. It would make sense to put dwelling three-family in the same
Not even in the same place in the.
area
only got
of
multifamily.
the directory. Yep.
Yep, we can do that.
Do we decide on the multifamily dwelling definition though?
Well, if you guys look at them and pick the one that's best, you know. They're just,
My sense is the one that is dwelling comma multifamily is worded a little bit better. I would probably change it to say 3 or more units,
yes, me too.
not more
Not
than
res-
3.
Not to strict it,
Right,
three or more.
right, because 3.
Not
We could be
less-
looking
All
at
that
4 or
just-
5
Right.
And
or
not
more.
less than 3.
Yeah, what is it, doesn't it say right now, it says
Well,
not
this
less
is
than-
not less than 3,
according to mine.
which is kind of confusing. And then
Yeah,
this
that-
one
right.
says more than 3.
Right, so I think,
I would like the more than 3.
More
so
than
I,
three.
well, but I think it should say 3 or more.
Yes.
Yeah,
3
to
or
capture the
more.
three, to capture the 3.
And but I don't like, that cannot be classified as a single-family dwelling.
Yeah, that's true, that is a little
That's
weird.
kind of weird.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I
that-
think it's a combination
Yeah,
of the two.
I think you're right. I agree with you. Yep. So we'll come up with, we'll
The wording
combine
for
those
that and
two
get
and
that,
send them to
get
you.
that
Yeah.
inserted so we can
Yeah.
get an updated copy of this before we
Yep.
do any more with it. Okay.
So that's it for there. Now, I don't know who's responsible for the 415 attachment. That's the chart with all the zoning things on it.
The land use table, yep.
Let me see here. Find mine.
We got that?
And
You got,
the land use table, the one that you have in your materials might not be the most up-to-date one. I know Jeff sent some additional changes.
Yeah, ours is dated February of '23, so.
25.
it's- Oh, the one I got 23.
I
That's
got
how old that is,
25.
so. Yep,
Okay, so you probably have the best one, yes.
Will does.
Oh, there's a February 23 one, yeah, but I actually have a 25 one here.
Okay.
So, on that one, in red, automotive sales and repair was added with a special permit for town center, then crossed off. I'm wondering why, because that's a legal use of the properties.
I can't tell you, off the top of my head. At some point, we were told to take that off, but we can add it back.
I think that might fall under, one of the motor vehicle fuel sales and service. Let's see.
But you got motor vehicles, fuel sales with convenience.
Right.
You got,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Vehicle sales and service is broken down 3 different ways in our regulations already. There is personal, so that's your personal vehicles,
Right.
pleasure, that's RVs and such, and then professional, which is heavy equipment. So it might have been redundant.
but,
the thinking.
we gotta go back over here. Oh, I know. We go back to our zoning charts here. And town center. Town center, automobile sales and repair is a special permit on our zoning regulations.
So is it a question of just having it
But what he's
added
saying
as
is
special
that
permit in
we
town
have
center?
this- No, I see that,
Yeah,
is,
right.
but this is the same use. And so we have it.
But it's not, but this one doesn't even have it in town center. Where town center, it is automotive sales and repair is a special permit in town center.
So we should. And is that the same for pleasure and professional?
Yeah.
I would say yes.
Because they do,
So should that use be added back in?
Vista's saying just to add it into,
Well,
the sales and service personal?
I don't know why,
I mean, it's, the wording is there, that's the only thing that I'm after.
yeah, and some of the current table uses, it's vehicle sales and service.
So, vehicle sales and service personal is in the town gateway as a special permit. It's the way the wording is stated, so,
And then
I don't
some
know
of
if you
them
can
is
combine it or not,
automotive
but that's the
sales
way it
and
is, unless
repair.
we're gonna change the wording in the zoning.
So Will, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Are you just looking to make sure that vehicle sales and service personal is included as a special permit in town center as well?
I don't think so.
Is it?
No, it's not now. I'm
No, it's
wondering if
not.
that's
Well-
why you're.
So I think in town center, the uses, they end at taverns,
Yeah, I often thought that was cut off
and
there.
that's cut off, because why wouldn't we, that would be the vehicle sales, service, and places of worship?
Right. Yeah, you can see there's no close of that box. That's, I
Right,
love our,
and we have churches in our town center, so
be sure we do. Yes.
I would look at that. And I don't think we need both automotive sales and repair and vehicle sales and repair.
No, I agree with that.
I just combine whichever one is.
So we should just add an SP to the town center district for the vehicle sales and service personal.
For all of them,
For personal pleasure and professional vehicles.
I don't know. I don't know why we.
Yeah, I don't think you want
split it
pleasure
out.
and professional in town center. I could see personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you do pleasure, you end up with boats, RVs and things like that.
Right.
and then-
Yeah, exactly. But I agree with you that worship place should probably be a special permit in town center. And
Do we really want a car dealership
Do we want it?
in town center? Like automotive sales and repair?
So like
I
if,
guess that's like a
if the
smaller
gas man
gas
wanted
station.
to,
So that's why they're saying that maybe that's the difference, as an accessory use and not as a, I don't know. I would just leave it the way it is.
I mean,
In
that's,
this, in the zone, in the.
that's
in the
fine
zone.
too.
You
But-
already have one place that's selling cars in the town center, Gateway Auto. And then, D&M sells them now and again.
Yeah,
But they're the gateway.
Yeah, they're gateway.
Gateway.
but no, I get it, I get it, we can keep it, not.
Rissa, while we're at this, did we think that worship place should be a special permit in town center? And then it probably just didn't make the box ran out of room on the cut page? I've thought that myself before.
I think so.
I think so.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
okay. Can we have that added in, Claudia?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do we have a decision on the town center with the vehicle repair?
Just personal.
Just personal.
Just personal, okay. And it's a special permit use, correct?
Yes.
Right.
And the worship place is also special permit in town center.
Correct.
Are we gonna keep vehicle and automotive, or picking one or the other, or is it, there's a distinction between the two in our definitions, or not?
No, that was a double up.
Well, if we wanted differentiate between personal, recreational, and professional, then I think we need to keep the vehicle sales and service. Because it breaks it out to 3 categories.
Yeah.
So the automotive sales and repair entry that was deleted should remain deleted.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one was drive-through. I mean, it's like, got nothing there. What's drive-through? What does that mean? I don't understand its application in the chart.
Oh, back. It's a lot of back and forth.
It is.
Yes, it
It's
is.
a ton of back and forth.
Drive-through,
So
it's in the table?
It's in the table,
It's
yeah.
banks and financial institutions without a drive-through, I think. I think that should be just part of this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
On the 23 one, it had banks and financial institutions with a drive-through, banks and financial
Okay.
institutions without a drive-through.
I didn't put that one together.
Yeah.
That's what's in the 23 version, so.
So the 25 still has them too, it just changes, it spells out through properly.
But they split it, so it's on its own piece of paper, so drive-through looks like it's its own separate use.
Oh, sorry, that's confusing.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
it
is.
is.
That's what I thought. Drive-through with its own separate use, and I want to know what use of, how that worked.
Yeah, in the version I'm looking at, it's all in the box with the banks and financial institutions.
And you'll see,
Dory, in the final published version, those kind of formatting things go away.
that standalone drive-through Willie didn't appear anywhere anyway, it was just,
Yeah, I couldn't
Yeah.
find it anywhere, so that's why I just didn't put it together as a part of the other page.
right.
All right, so then cannabis establishments, we have no parking requirement.
We did in our regulations.
It's not here.
But in the regulations, we did. On this chart, there isn't.
So those are in the text of the regulations, right, those parking requirements?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see what they are here and there.
So 41529.
Had parking in there when you were originally
It-
passed it.
The regulations in 41529, I think just refer to a traffic management plan. It doesn't require a specific number of parking spots, but we can, in that parking column, we could just put a statement that says, see section 415-29.
Is there a way to split out cannabis establishments, so it's cannabis retail and then cannabis micro cultivation?
Sure.
So if we ever wanna split those, right?
Yep, we could do that.
Well, I swore we did those regulations, we put parking requirements in there, and it's not.
Cannabis in town center doesn't need parking, but we don't, it just depends on what part of the town center we're allowed to put it in.
There isn't any, basically. I know when we did these regulations on cannabis, we had major discussions on parking, and we were going with like the small, same thing as small convenience stores, is what we're using,
Yeah.
same as a convenience store, based on square footage.
Do we wanna have the table reflect that now? I mean, we're going to public hearing anyway.
Yeah, I've got to see, I'm looking, trying to find the convenience store regs there, what we had for that.
Small format, you said?
Yeah. Because we hashed these cannabis regs around forever when we first wrote those. That's, of course, how many years ago?
Retail convenience, 1 per 300 square feet.
So in the table, we'll break it out into retail and hybrid retail, micro cultivation. Are those the two?
Same as drugstore, small, okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yes, for now.
And then special permit use, just like it is right now for those. And you'll let me know parking?
If you wanted to go with that same, retail convenience, small format is 1 per 300 square feet. And that's the same for drugstore, small format is 1 per 300 square feet, so on and so forth, for all small format shops, if that's what you want us to do.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
But I mean, so I'm gonna just,
I think that may be too restrictive, you know, if you wanna go less, I don't know.
well, and also, you know, if you think about a convenience store, you walk in and you have 500 square feet of retail area. When you walk into a cannabis store, there's really no retail area, and people aren't shopping. So what are you considering, the whole building, or just the area where people are? Like, I think that it is a little bit different, just in the way it functions.
Right, yeah, you may wanna define for retail area only, not
Yeah, and
with
a lot of times
structure,
what these retail users do is they do by reservation only, and they allow only 2 or 3 people every half hour, so
Churn
they
it
don't,
out.
so based on their operations plan, might dictate the parking.
that's what I'm trying to find, something that's. Like, for distillery, we've got like 1 per 2,000 square feet, you know, I mean, that's, I think 300 would be too restrictive, would require too many parking places based on volume of traffic that would be going to a retail cannabis establishment.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It also seems though we have a hybrid, so as cannabis micro cultivation, underneath there is any proposed retail sales, so you get a large building doing micro cultivation, and it sounds like we have allow for hybrid retail sales out of that micro cultivator.
I would almost say, when we look at these regulations, you know, I would say to have them with their traffic management plan propose what their parking should be, not
We
put
would have
it.
to make the parking as part of our special
Right,
permit.
part of the traffic management plan, including parking.
That would work. That way you
Oh,
could, the
yeah.
time you could,
Here we had, yeah, medical marijuana dispensary facility, we had 1 per 300 square feet under the medical. That's where we had it under. And
the medical marijuana was an appointment.
Medical marijuana
That was
production
appointments
facility
only
is
and
1
all
per
that.
2,000 square feet.
Commercial now, you know, there's more
Right.
people that wanna pull up to
Right,
go in.
medical is much less traffic to it. I think, yeah, leave it as part of the special permit process, I think.
I'd go with that one.
We can determine it at the time of reviewing the
Yeah, rather than
application.
paint yourself into a corner.
Yeah, otherwise we're, you know, depending on location, size of building, what size of retail area, things like that, which all can be part of the special permit to be discussed at the time.
Makes sense.
So we'll leave that blank.
Well, don't you have to put something there?
We just point to the regulation, and the regulation
Or
says you need to have the
just put
traffic
required
management.
per special permit, or to be determined at special permit.
See
Something.
regulation and put the
Yes.
regulation
Yeah.
section.
Cite the regulation section, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now the next one is commercial recreation, which in our zoning is a huge thing, covers a lot of different uses. And we have 1 per 600 square feet of interior space.
per 600 square feet of interior space.
Okay, but
That's by
that,
the regulations. Yep.
but that also covers your, covers a golf course.
Right. Yep.
It covers your campers. It covers, let's see, we get over here, it also covers, what did I see? I thought I saw somewhere where it covered snowmobile things. Oh, outdoor activities include facilities for skating, skiing, snowmobiling, sledding, swimming, squash, tennis. I mean, it seems like if you put up a tennis facility, you got a small building, and you got outdoor courts, you could have 16 cars there, and you only required because you got a 300 square foot building.
Should this be treated the same way we just decided to treat the cannabis establishments, driven by the site plan?
That's what I had written on my sheet here.
Well, and that could be changed to be minimum. Yeah. Minimum of 1 core, 600.
Right, like that's your
That's your
entry
minimum.
point.
That's your minimum, then you can
And then you go
expand
up,
it from there
yeah.
during the permitting process, hearing.
Then, no, Jeff's still looking.
Oh, no, I'm playing ahead,
I'll plan ahead.
trying to.
Home occupation. We have it in town center and town gateway as special permit. It's supposed to be permitted. At least that's the way I interpreted what I have on my chart here.
Yeah, town center and town gateway in the old regulations, the old chart shows permitted. So that should be,
So town center and town gateway should be permitted?
for home occupation, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We good with that, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Then we get down to marina. It says 1 per 1,500 square feet. But really, a marina should be parking per the number of boat slips.
And in the old regs, it shows nothing.
The old one, it's blank with the
It's
special
blank.
permit,
Right.
which seems to make sense, so where did that come from? Is that in the definition somewhere?
But I agree that it should be 1 per 3.
I wrote down 1 per 3, it could be
That's
one.
made reasonable, yeah, I mean.
I think 3 is reasonable.
Well, again, do you want to lock in a number, or do you want it to be driven by the special permit and site plan review?
How many parking spaces do we know does a current marina have versus slips?
It might be impossible to calculate, because I don't think anything is striped.
Yeah, it's impossible to
Yeah.
calculate.
That's a moving object.
But this
Yeah.
wouldn't affect the current marina.
No,
Right, but we
But-
don't wanna make a non-conforming use either if we don't.
Right.
in the way our regulations are written, that can be the only marina on the lake anyways,
Yeah. So,
basically.
the rules
No
are
other
set.
marinas allowed. So, it would almost be better to leave it blank
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Alright.
than square foot requirement.
Right now, it's just 1,500 square.
We had it blank, right, so.
It was blank previously, yes.
So just delete that 1,500, et cetera.
Yes,
Okay,
I think so.
fine with me. Then the next one was restaurant, high turnover, and retail convenience. Why are they not allowed in town center?
My guess is the level of traffic that they would create, but I don't know what the reasoning would have been for the decision in the first
Yeah,
place.
the old regs, the old chart, we're not allowed either. The old chart, we're not allowed. They have Town Gateway and P&I.
Probably a policy decision in the past where you didn't want things like McDonald's and Burger King along your main street in
Well, we
those
got
areas.
2 Dunkin' Donuts,
Yeah,
very
we do.
high turnover.
That's coffee, it's healthy.
Necessary.
It's necessary.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
It's not optional.
French fries are healthy.
Not optional.
We have a blank building on Main Street now that is looking for an owner, Cumberland Farms.
Yeah.
And the Cumberland Farms put in the sales paperwork that it cannot be they had different terminology, but the same difference, no fast food restaurant. And that is selfishly for them, so they
No
don't
fast
compete
food
with them.
restaurant?
Right.
Cumberland Farms,
Yeah. Quick serve restaurant, that's how they termed it.
No what?
No quick serve restaurants is how they termed it.
Cumberland Farms puts so many restrictions on the properties that they sell,
They
that's why
sell,
they
yeah.
don't sell.
That's why it takes forever to sell it.
Huh, okay, I didn't know that
They're
one.
restricting everything.
Anything that's in competition with them, they restrict.
Yes.
So then my last one, if
But,
you're not-
but to your point,
okay,
I mean, there used to be, like, next to the Cumberland Farms, the Wendy's, that was with a drive-through, that's a
Right.
lower turnover restaurant now.
it does still have the drive-through there.
Yeah. So do we, I don't know, do you wanna keep it that way? 'Cause,
Well, these regulations have been in effect since 22, so
Yeah,
it hasn't been a problem yet, but.
that's fine. I don't even see.
Are we gonna leave that one blank or make it
I
a
mean, you can do special permit.
special permit?
What's anybody think?
I think that
Just for
would,
a town gate, town
I
center.
think it's better than not having it at all.
At least it gives us the option under the special permit, it gives us an option to control it at some point. Seeing we're going with public hearing and everything else, if we add it to the town center portion.
Yeah,
Because,
I have no dog in this fight, whatever you guys want.
what's anybody think?
I don't really have strong feelings either
Okay.
way. I
Adam?
think we wanna add it. Jeremy, do you,
Basically,
Maybe
it's
business
just
friendly.
along Main Street,
Yeah.
there's not really a lot of room for,
Right, there's not a lot of room
That's the
for
thing,
it.
it's not a lot of room
No.
anyhow.
so, I would say add it, so,
As a
Special
special
Will do.
permit.
special permit, yes.
By special permit.
then my last one. On the last page, your wind and solar facilities accessory to any residential or commercial use. You have special permit down through there. But windmills are not allowed in town center, family town center, or town gateway.
Or should they? Well, Gateway possibly. Gateway could be, but,
It's
yeah,
not in the,
no.
it was in,
Well, it was never in our regulations, period.
do you have solar regulations?
Which districts are they not allowed in?
I don't see them anywhere.
Town center family, town center, and town gateway.
That's what you're showing, town single family, town center, and town gateway,
single family, sorry.
I'm just looking at the regulations in section 41553. It says windmills are allowed by special permit as accessory uses to any residential or commercial use when they meet all of the following requirements. Would your table now contradict the regulations? Because that makes it sound like,
Well, the regulation that we have here in our zoning says, no, number F, says no windmill shall be allowed in any town center, family, town center, or town gateway.
yep. There I see it, yes, I didn't read far enough, thanks.
Where, I don't have that sheet, do I?
Page 113.
Should
It's gonna
wind
be
and
your
solar be
113.
broken apart then?
It's,
If,
BB.
I don't know if those rules are gonna,
Huh?
I'm wondering if wind and solar facilities should be broken into two different uses. Cause if the siting council came in and said you're getting it in town center, you're getting it in town center, regardless of our regulation,
but-
right?
That's for wind too.
Okay, it's
Yeah,
not as
if-
common.
But
Well,
the
it
way you
depends
got
on the
accessory
generation.
to any residential. Now, that means as a residential, I could put up a.
Yeah, true.
And then the other thing that I'm worrying about that is accessory to residential. Now, does that count rooftop solars?
Yes.
Yeah, solar array.
So if it's rooftop, it's accessory to the residence.
So that means it has to be a special permit. They have to come before planning and zoning to get permit for a rooftop solar.
It says roof mounted solar arrays are permitted via zoning permit in all districts, provided they're mounted no higher than 1 foot above the roof.
Down to number 3, yeah.
But if we have it accessory to any residential, unless that means a ground-based one.
Yeah, anything other than a roof,
Okay.
yes.
I mean, if it's only allowed as an accessory use, do we even want it in the table? Is it allowed as a permitted use?
Well, you have, in the table, you have accessory residential uses
I was just
as a
looking at
line, yeah. That might cover it, that's a good point, Krista. You probably don't need it in the table.
Or it should be under accessory residential uses, comma, solar,
You can do it that way.
because it's not permitted, it's by.
Why do we duplicate the, the zones for something like a special exception, a special regulations used within the text and also in the tables? Why is it duplicated? And it's redundant, right, for one, and now there's discrepancies as well. Like, I don't see windmill in any of the tables.
Yeah, you have to look at the new ones, because the windmills are added
Yeah,
to the
that's
new
all.
regulations, the codified ones.
The codified one,
Yeah.
yeah. that's
In the codified version, the uses only appear in the table, in the one table, the combined table.
Yeah, they're not in our present regulations.
Even though we have windmills
Yeah.
here in our present regulations.
Right.
We don't have it on the table.
Right.
So are we gonna move forward with a standard that our tables define where our uses are? Or are we gonna have it duplicated and not consistent? Is there a reason to be more prescriptive in our special regulations sections for those uses and where they apply? It's confusing.
I would think the written regulation takes preference over the tables, because personally, there could be errors in the tables or something missed there. The written regulations at least spell it out
Yeah.
in more detail.
They have to be consistent, yeah, I agree. Moving forward. Whether we include it to reinforce in the special regulations, I think that's up to us. But they gotta at least be consistent.
Did you have anything else, Kristen? Did you have any listed? You will, so.
So my only thing, and I didn't go through it with that fine tooth of a comb because I was hoping we would have a revised table with, that were separated, not in alphabetical, and then like we had talked about some of the uses that are allowed to show by zoning permit. I sent an email, I don't know if you think you said. So that would be my only comment, is to see if we can update that table to make sure that the uses that are allowed by zoning permit are also listed. And if possible, to make them by type use categories and not alphabetical. And I think I said, I liked New Hartford's regulations because they really broke it down, in use categories. Even they have like 2 separate tables, one for the residential zones and one for the commercial zones. I don't think we need to go that far, but I think it did a really nice job at breaking down the uses, how they were broken down. Not that we have every use that they have, I'm not suggesting we do that, but kind of mirror some of what they have. Just because it's much easier to use when it's that way, like, so you have all your dwellings together, you have all your occupations together, you have, all of those type uses.
Sure, that's a common way that we see them, and we can certainly do that. I can take a stab at arranging them, and I'll take a look at New Hartford's, because I think we have that one. But I'll leave it up to your review to make sure everything is where it should be. They frequently end up with a kind of a miscellaneous category, which is always fun. But that's a common way of doing it, and we can certainly modify it.
Do you have any other recommendations for the structure of regulations based on like benchmarking other towns?
Not really. Yours are pretty, is a standard way of arranging them. The difference between the common I guess the common regulations and special regulations. Those titles are open to interpretation, but I can see the difference between them. Internally, I don't have any suggestions on the organization. Were you asking more specifically about the table or about the regulations in general?
I think, any opportunities you see in general. I know we have diverse subset of lands here and uses, so I definitely see that it's challenging, right? But any other observations you make by going through our regulations and seeing opportunities for restructuring, for easier use by the end user?
I really don't, and one of the advantages of codifying is that you're going to end up with an electronic version of the code and E-code 360, which is where the ordinances are now. And most people aren't going to be looking by section; they're going to be searching on terms. They're going to search on windmill, or they're going to search on sign, and they'll get a list of hits where everything is. So the organization, in a sense, becomes less important because people are going to rely on those searches. And in the codified version, we've made sure that the breakdowns within the sections are, the subsections are consistent. So that helps too. There aren't any unnumbered paragraphs. Everything has an identifier, so it's easy to reference. Your special regulations are arranged alphabetically, which do it because you know, at a glance, you can see the whole list and you know where to add things.
Yeah, well, I'll give an example. It's, so we have in our regulations for major and minor site plan requirements, right, in our regulations. And then we just passed, parking as a principal use, right? And in that parking for principal use, we're gonna have major and minor site plan requirements separately. So if someone's searching through, they're looking for, what do I need for a site plan requirement? I guess they gotta know what they're going for first and then read that section. Cause they're gonna find differing definitions for site plan requirements if they're looking at parking, which are recently added, versus something else in here. Yeah, I wish they were consistent, and there was one place for site plan requirements. Well, that's just an example.
But there should be,
Yeah.
there should be. So and they have those regulations,
Which ones?
the parking requirement regulations.
Yes.
For parking as a principal use.
You got the parking stuff right, Claudia?
Was that, how recent was that?
That was
Within the last
4 or 5
year.
months ago.
Yeah, within the last year.
No, yeah, it was recent, pretty recent.
Yeah, it was.
December, November, December.
We requested to be added.
So, parking, I have a section on parking types, outdoor lighting and landscaping, is that it?
No, that was there. This was a new parking regulations for primary usage.
Parking as a principal use.
Principal
was,
use, yeah.
Yes, for standalone parking lots that not connected with buildings or.
Hmm.
It was a new regulation we wrote.
I'm going to search. It doesn't jump out at me and it makes me wonder.
I don't know. That may be something you have to send her, Jeff, so they can add it to the codification.
Yep.
They could've gotten this. 'Cause that's the only major one. How about driveways?
That's what I was just gonna say.
Driveways took us 2 years to do, and that's a big one.
Yes. I believe that was already signed. Any-
Parking as a separate use.
She doesn't
Not
have it.
finding it, so if you could send me a copy, absolutely.
I will,
Put that in
and I'll redirect you to the, one of our web pages, which has a list of some of the recently, changed regulations. I think that was included in one of the emails that I had sent you, but we'll verify it.
Yeah, driveways was another one that, a new one we took on that used to be by ordinance that the selectmen had, and they asked us to do it as a regulation.
Yeah, that's actually a separate chapter in the code already.
Okay.
It's already available online. That one I remember for sure. But the parking off the top of my head and doing a quick search, I'm not seeing. So, yeah, that's the kind of thing, Adam, that, once you take a look at it, when we have overlap like that, sometimes we'll recommend that since the site plan is in a different section, maybe in the parking, you just want to refer to the site plan section rather than having it in two different places. You want to link it that way.
Yeah. It would simplify it.
And I guess another example for our driver regulations, I think we have a couple pages of, penalties. I remember language for, I'd have to think about this, but I remember a couple pages towards the end of the driveway regulations of whether,
I think there was.
yeah.
Yep.
Why only does it apply to driveways, or is there a general section for applying to anything where it has a bond or, subdivision separate, but
Yeah.
anything that has a bond.
Any of these changes, roughly how long will it take to implement, to get them back to us for review?
These I can probably have for you next week. Because there are a bunch of changes, but nothing too extensive. So I can work them into the materials and,
Well, you still have to add the parking in too, as a,
yeah.
as an additional one so we can get them complete, so.
Right, I can have that done by the end of next,
Because we
end of
don't
next
meet
week.
for 2 more weeks, huh?
So just to go back to the table real quick, 'cause I found the section I was thinking of. So in the table of use, there's only site plan and special permit required. But there's some things where we allow, by zoning permit or that are allowed. And in section H, site plan requirements, H number 1. It says for all uses other than a single-family home, accessory residential use, family daycare home, farm, home farming, seasonal cottage, and all other districts, approval of a site plan is developed. So I think those would be, that's weird because they're not talking about site plan approval, they're talking about a physical site plan. But in our regulations, we say that those are site plan. Well, single-family dwelling in a rural residential zone is a, what's P?
Yeah, I think your use table currently treats P as a
P.
zoning permit. Could change it to a ZP throughout for clarity. That wouldn't be a horrible thing to do.
Yeah.
'Cause you
'cause
could
I-
read that as, oh, I can just do it without approval. I mean,
Yeah, it may be better to change that
it might
to
be better to,
ZP.
yeah, it might be better to change those Ps to ZPs, yeah.
Yeah.
To clarify it.
Or you can just change the description in the key.
Yeah.
Where it says P equals permitted, you could do permitted, zoning permit required,
Yeah.
or just take out the word permitted and put zoning permit required.
Yep. I think that,
Yeah,
that
I
would.
think there just needs to
yeah.
be something,
Clarify it.
yeah.
Anything else? Adam?
Are you gonna take this opportunity to amend the map, or?
That's a different project.
Different project.
Okay, all right.
That's a whole
Put a
different
pin in
project
that
that
one.
we've worked
All
on
right.
for about 5 years now.
Okay.
And we're still waiting.
Closer.
Yeah.
It doesn't involve me at all.
I'll be old and gray when we get it.
I feel a public hearing. All right, I'll put it away.
John, anything else, or you good with that? Okay, so hopefully our next meeting, we can put this on our agenda to discuss, and then at that meeting, we can set a public hearing.
Yep.
I mean, there won't be enough time to have the same public hearing on this as the subdivision regs, because I doubt, because COG is gonna have to review it also.
Well, we could set them on the same path if you like.
I was just trying to limit the number of public hearings to try to condense them if we do get public.
Right,
content.
yeah, that's,
You know, make it easier for us and the public, but
I think you could, you set the public hearing for your subdivision for April 14th. Your next meeting is gonna be March 10th, so you could go ahead and
Yeah,
set that for the
so-
same date.
Yeah.
I think that'd be fine.
yeah, I mean, as long as we can get the clean, you know, an updated version with all the changes and everything.
Okay.
Okay, does anybody wanna make a motion to do a public hearing for that on April 14th?
Do a public hearing.
Well,
You wanna wait until you get the
I
clean
think we
copy?
should wait.
Oh, we'll
till
wait,
we-
yeah, let's wait till we see.
Till we get the
next copy,
actual
yes, okay.
regulations that we wanna
Yeah,
set.
yeah, yep.
But what,
We'll
what
continue
he's saying is we
discussion
still
on
have
this,
time, right?
You still have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if we do it at their
Okay,
next
we'll
meeting.
just continue the discussion on this at our next meeting.
Right.
We're good. Next item, 6, new business.
Claudia, I think you can take
I
your
think we're
exit
good,
if you like,
Claudia. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you.
and I'll be in touch tomorrow.
All right, thanks, I appreciate your time.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, thank you.
Thank you. New business, A, PZC 25-1, zoning regulation change application, applicant Town of Winchester, Connecticut, proposal modification to section 4B cannabis to remove a 200-foot prohibition related to certain sensitive uses and citing cannabis establishments.
So based on the conversation we just had, in 2B, and then it'll be in 3B, a traffic management plan, including parking, shall be provided that demonstrates adequate safety measures. Should we add that?
It should be added to both, the micro cultivation and the,
Just so it's clear why we don't have parking standards? Is that the right way to do it?
Yeah, so where do you want to add that?
I'm just thinking, I'm open to your suggestions, Jeremy. 2B, a traffic management plan, including parking,
Do we know what?
shall be provided that demonstrates adequate
What are the
safety measures.
selectmen's comments
Sure.
on this?
none.
Is that based on like some type of study they
They
performed?
didn't want to micromanage us. You can ask Jeff.
I thought it had to do with what the existing facilities.
So what were the comments, Jeff?
Well, I did not get a chance to watch the meeting, but the quick summation of it was, they're leaving it in your capable hands to craft any cultivation regulations. So that's
So
all
how
they
about
were.
the removal of the 200-foot boundary?
Again, didn't get a chance to watch the meeting, but this is something that was sort of driven.
I did watch it, and I mean,
driven
it
around.
kind of, there was a little more, some discussion on that, but then they decided not to tell us what to do, leave it up to us.
Right.
Basically was what I got from it. There was no.
That's how it was
parameter
relayed to me from
Change
the
it to 100 feet, to remove the distance totally. It was, leave it to our discretion what we do with it.
And I think the way it's crafted now does leave it up to your discretion. You know, they're gonna present you with those sensitive uses within that area, and you guys get to decide whether or not it's sensitive enough to say no or allow.
Well, and that, it should be up to the applicant to define and point out to us what all those uses are. I mean, otherwise you would have to do the research, or we as a commission have to do to make sure we do our diligent research to see all the established, whether it's a daycare or church. So, I mean, there could technically be a church in someone's home.
Right.
You know, that we're not aware of or something, so it would take some research.
What prohibits an applicant from going to ZBA? And, well, we just say no
Well,
establishment can't be.
I asked that question to Jeremy before the meeting and Josh, and Jeremy can answer that easily. Basically, it's not allowed.
Yeah, I mean, so to go to ZBA, you have to have a stated hardship. And the concern would be that if we tell applicants that they need to go to ZBA and obtain a variance, that they have to go in and come up with a hardship. And if an aggrieved neighbor or somebody else decides that they want to appeal that decision, it goes to the court, and the court might say, well, what's your hardship? You really don't have one, because a hardship has to be specific to the property.
Yep.
So I always err on the side of caution using the ZBA as that, as that tool, and instead, use your regulations and change your regulations to allow what you want to allow.
I agree. And then, I know we met amongst the was it Inland Wetlands, ZBA, and us, and also the term special exception came up. So what's the difference if they went for a special exception?
Statutorily, there is no difference in the state statute. However, some towns call a special permit the permit that gets issued by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they call a special exception essentially the same thing, but it gets issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that varies municipality to municipality, but statutorily, there is no difference.
So, okay, both would go to the ZBA, whether it's a ZBA or if it's special exception, they both go to ZBA.
And so a variance, well, so you could set it up that way. I don't think your regulations currently, do you have special exceptions in your regulations? I don't think so. You do? Okay.
They have a split between ZBA and
They have them
PNZ.
split, okay.
I
yeah,
thought special
so-
exception comes back to the zoning board.
I gotta look at what way we
Yeah,
have
I don't
it.
know your regulations well enough yet to know the answer. Typically, special exceptions go to the ZBA. That's a lot of the regs that I've read in the past.
Yeah, they don't
Special
come back to
exceptions
us.
go to ZBA.
They don't come back to us.
Okay.
Yeah, it says right in our regulations, special permits and special exceptions. Within this section, special permit and special exceptions are interchangeable, except that special permit applications are heard by P and Z and special exceptions by ZBA.
Okay.
So that's,
But the funny thing about that is, looking through your use table, as we just did, I don't see anything listed as a special exception use.
you would be correct.
So, I don't, that might be a
The tables
holdover.
all show special permit.
Right, I
Yes,
don't
when-
see any
when these
special
regulations
exception uses.
Were done about 7 years ago or so, just as I got on the board, they were rewritten
Okay.
at that point.
Or is it a use not defined in our regulations?
Could be, we'd have to go through it with a fine tooth comb, but, I mean, I would say if there's nothing in your use tables that show anything as a special exception, then there is no special exception.
I'm not aware of any
Yeah.
myself.
As far as I can see.
No, though, yes, I don't,
It leaves the door open to create that, but, you know, it really depends on what level of jurisdiction you want to release and give to zoning board of appeals and versus what you want to keep in your hands, you know?
And I think where I might have, I'm gonna look it up. I think in our non-conforming section, there might be something that goes to,
That might make sense. And that would be typical anyway of non-conforming uses to go before the ZBA for dealing with those variances and things, trading on
no,
variances.
this hasn't gone to the COG, Jeff, at all, has it?
No.
so,
okay.
but,
So
so,
it has to, yeah.
so with the, back to this, I think this is a good idea for a couple of reasons. I think by creating this 200-foot boundary, what happens if a sensitive use applies for an application after the retail is approved? Does it create a non-conforming? Is it prohibited? It's kind of a tricky area that I think we can avoid. I think that the way you measure the boundary lines can get confusing, and sometimes they're within 200 feet, but they're not really near each other. If you think of the base building and consider childcare as that example. So I like this new language. The one thing, and I don't know if you guys looked at it and just didn't like it, but I'll bring it up. In addition to this language, I suggested we add a sentence that says, the commission may deny an application based on proximity to the above uses if found to be in conflict with the standards set forward of this section. And then the considerations for special permit section is referenced. Just to make it clear, the reason we're asking for this is if, you know, it's in conflict, we can deny it, but not necessarily just because it's 200 feet, you know? It could be 200 feet and not make a difference, it could be 250 feet and make a big difference, right? You know, so,
So by changing it to this, it gives us the option to make that decision under the special permit process,
right,
basically.
to use use this as consideration, so they'll have to show them all on a map. And if we, you know, even wanted to make that 300 feet or 500 feet, you know, we can make with that circle however big we want, they just to show us those uses. And we can make that decision, it's not a hard line. And I think in the past, I've used the example in Torrington, the retail marijuana right on Winstead Road there is within however many feet of the church that's up the road, but it's, you know, over a river and over the trail and up the mountain, like. Right, like, but it, so it didn't make a difference, we said, okay, we know it's there, but it's around the
You
corner,
don't
the
have direct
driveway's up.
access from there
Right,
to
so
between
that's
two
fine.
points.
It's
Right.
kind of like the same situation over here and some
Yes.
other places, so I think it's good. And I don't know if did you look at that regulation?
The Torrington one?
No, the suggestion.
Yeah, I think the reason I didn't include it is I thought it was somewhat redundant, but I also have no problem putting it in there. You know, I think because it's a special permit use already, and you're asking for those sensitive uses on a map and to be shown, I think it sort of goes without saying that the commission has that jurisdiction, but if you want to add it, I mean, that's your pleasure. I don't. Doesn't make any difference to me, really. You want to read it again, Rista?
So it just says, and it doesn't, I'm okay with that too, but, the commission may deny the application based on proximity to the above uses if found to be in conflict with the standards set forth in this section and section 3.J.4, considerations for special permit.
what are some of the considerations if we were to, like, walk through it?
Well, the
We
spe-
mentioned in the past, like, if, let's say the purse burned down.
School, church, daycare.
Yeah, but so the 200 foot from boundary line to boundary line?
That's the way it was set up. That's why we're saying remove that 200 foot. And it leaves us the discretion.
So in
to
your
look at it.
special permit table of uses, considerations for special permit, suitable I'm not gonna read the whole regulation, I'll just read the underlined part, but suitable location for use, appropriate improvements, suitable transportation conditions, adequate public utilities, adequate public service, environmental protection and conservation, long-term viability, purposes, long as it's not in conflict with the purposes and the plan of conservation development. So for this, it would really be the suitable location of use, whether the location and size of the site and the nature and intensity of the operation involved will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the area. So we can use the location of one of these sensitive uses to say it's not suitable location for use.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, we don't have to, but it might just, if we're concerned about that.
Adds a layer of protection to
It
your.
does.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll add that sentence in. I couldn't keep up with you as you were reading and I'm typing, but I'll grab it and throw it in
It's
there.
right, I sent it to
Yeah.
an attachment for you,
Yep.
So what do you figure it's gonna take a month for the COG to review this?
Well, we need 30 days.
Yeah,
I would say April 14th again.
yeah, I would agree.
We'll put this out for April 14th, same time, same public hearing.
I think that makes sense. Now, you had made one comment as well about parking that you wanted to add, and I didn't catch that either, but I think it makes sense to add it here. I know it's in the traffic management plan.
Yeah, that was under 2B,
Yeah, 2B.
where it says traffic management plan,
Yep.
to also include
And you had
parking.
said,
Just add traffic.
including parking. Okay.
And then it would have to
That's
be
what I
the
thought
same
it was.
thing in micro cultivation.
Okay, all right. So it's up on the screen, everybody, just so you can see what it looks like.
Do you want this?
There in front of me. That's great. Commissioned into that.
Yep.
Yeah. And I got to the proximity and then I lost you.
Sorry.
I can type somewhat fast, but not that fast.
I didn't realize you were trying to type, but I would have talked slower.
That's all right.
Do we know how much parking's gonna be required for retail? Can we get that information? Are we gonna?
For what?
Well, it'd be site-specific and based on
Based on their plan?
the application and how much retail area. They could have
Yeah.
a 10,000 square foot building, but the actual retail area, maybe 300 feet,
Yeah.
600 feet, you know.
And how many they allow per hour or per
Right.
half hour, and how many employees they think they need to have?
How many employees, yeah, we need to take all that in consideration. That's why when we were discussing how many, you know, we were looking at one for 300 square foot of building. Is that overkill, or
Yeah.
you require them to have a huge parking lot, and there's only 6 cars in the parking lot, you know? They limit them to locations.
Yeah, it'll be our first, so, just, I guess we could compare to, another retail location, similar retail
But
location.
it's different than retail. It works so different than traditional retail.
Oh, I mean another retail, cannabis retail.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Torrington, we've got it for Torrington, Great Barrington, wherever.
Yep.
you know. And I was up in Great Barrington Sunday and yesterday, I mean, nearly every one of the parking lots were 4 or 5 cars. You know, very few
Yeah, and
compared to what they used to be.
the issue would be they take up, a neighboring parking spots, adjacent business.
Right. Somebody want to make a motion to move these forward for a public hearing on April 14th?
I'll make a motion to move the public hearing, April 14th.
I'll second it.
I'll second it, or Adam did, okay. All in favor? Unanimous? Okay. 7, other business, discussion regarding amendment of cannabis establishment regulations, section 4D regarding changes to allow cultivation uses in various zones throughout town.
Okay, back to the last agenda, item. There was, in the Board of Selectmen, I listened to it, there was an action for, I believe, the town manager took from one of the Board of Selectmen, had to do with the DUIs. No?
Again, I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to
Okay.
watch the meeting and I wasn't present, so I
I
don't
do
wanna
remember
comment.
Paul taking an action when that discussion occurred about, retail and 200-foot prohibition. I remember an action occurring. We might wanna circle back, make sure whatever,
What kind of action?
it had to do with, it was hard to hear, super
Okay.
hard to hear online, but it had to do with going to the police department and getting some data.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
As
it
far
was
as I
asking,
know,
yeah,
there's
they
still-
were asking that could he get anything from the police department as anything they've had with enforcement action regarding to the driving while under the influence. Even though it's tough to test for it, there's not very good testing and stuff. I know they've sent people to special classes and training and things like that, but the selectman did ask Paul for that information, if he could get that.
I'll follow up.
Okay. You're done, Jeff? On cultivation?
Again, it's really in your hands how you'd like to do it. I did have discussions with the town manager about the overlay zone. Tried to, explain all the good reasons that Rista was explaining to us with the level of discretion that you would have, being greater than the special permit process. And, he was fine with that. It's just, they're really looking for you guys to set up the rules if you want to go forward with it, is where we're at.
It's open for discussion, so, at this point.
So the markups came to us, right? And we asked if there was a compelling reason from the Board of Selectmen to go forward with this, and I didn't hear any compelling reason
No,
from the Board of
there was
Selectmen.
none.
Um,
I know there was a lot of discussion about social equity program and all that, but nothing was ever presented to us to show us what is it, how's it work, what's in it for the town. Why would it make it good for the town of Winchester? So, I mean, that's my opinion. I'd like to see some type of sales pitch on that somewhere, whether it's from the town point or what, but, I do know if we look at where there's a previous application which was next to an adjoining town, there will be a very strong battle with the neighboring town and the residents from the neighboring town. If we do change the regulations or allow it there, so.
I think anywhere. I mean,
Well, I'm just saying that there's
Yeah.
a lot of upset people that in an adjoining town, I
Yeah.
mean, there is
Well, there's a
right
lot
in
of-
this town too.
There's a lot of upset people in that,
So-
in that general neighborhood, and I think about, if it were going to be built next to my house as the second one in the entire state without a lot of data behind it, how would I feel? And I would probably be equally as upset, especially, even though, that's a larger lot size, that's still a neighborhood, and
And it
so.
still goes back to the odor problem. I mean, that's where I have it. I visited the one in Morris and saw smelled the odor problem.
Right, and so I have concerns over the use. If the selectmen and others feel that it's really a valid use, and like you said, they wanna really try to convince us of why, I think it needs to be with the most discretion, which is the overlay zone. I've not been quiet about that. But I also just generally have concerns over the use, so, yeah, what are the benefits, and why is this something we should continue to consider? I don't know. I just don't feel like we really want to be the guinea pig, but I do know that there's a lot of pressure to try to, because people feel this will really benefit the town, and I'd like to hear really why. I like that idea.
say, with the odor, until they can come up with some way to contain the odor or mitigate the odor and those issues.
For an outdoor grow, how can they?
Well, I agree, I know.
I mean, if it was in a greenhouse,
Right, exactly, at
different
least
story.
contained in a building, the greenhouse, there's odor control measures could be taking place, but outdoors, no, there isn't. I realize it's only for a few weeks, but still, if you're in that neighborhood, you live within half a mile, whatever, it's a major issue.
It definitely depends on the practice, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
Other
and we
people-
can't
other
control
people
who
are-
the vendor is,
right.
who the grower is.
You can't
but
regulate
we
the
write the
practice of how to
regulations,
do it.
right.
Right.
Well, I think through a overlay zone, we can ask for some of those, operational things. And, let me see if I can pull it up.
Jeremy, do you have, or could you get us any regulations from other municipalities in Connecticut?
Yeah, in fact, I've got a whole folder that I started putting together.
Don't give us Morse.
I don't think that one's, I don't think that's in here.
Don't waste your time there.
But
so.
I'll give you something.
Yeah,
and
that's not here, but.
I think also the reason why I'm pushing back a little bit too is, part of the markup excluded the 200-foot setback from a rural residential like parcel. So that means they're waiving any setback requirement for rural residential neighbor. If you go to,
If you're referencing the last agenda with that was really how I wrote them. I was talking about two separate issues, but I put it in one agenda item.
I'm talking about
Okay.
the applicant that came last.
Oh, okay.
And then also I'm
Good,
talking
sorry.
about the marked up regulations that were provided by, I believe your office, right? Or the mayor's office, that crossed out 200 foot as it applies to cannabis establishments, retail, cultivation included, right? If you go to the farm that went to where I felt it was done amazing, right? It was a great setup.
It was a beautiful
Very
operation.
professional, yep. That was 600 feet off the road.
Yeah.
That setback.
It was.
Yeah.
With nothing around it on adjoining property, other than field and forest.
Yep. And then if you went to Morris, I looked at Google's map, that's over 400 feet off the road for a setback.
But you had houses within
Yeah.
200 feet.
Not the backyards.
Yep. And then to them present to us and waive all requirements for a setback was like, oh, what are we doing here? Like, why would we want to do that?
I think what you'd want to, if you go down this path, what my suggestion to you would be, and it seems to be the way that a lot of the towns are doing it across the state that regulate both, is to separate retail, hybrid retail, dispensary operations from cultivation and production operations.
It has to be.
So therefore, you can get rid of the 200-foot restriction with the retail operations, but have a different, higher standard for the production and cultivation standards. So, I think the way the reg is written currently doesn't work to do that, doesn't work well to do that, but we would rewrite it.
And then I'll second Marissa's concerns. Like, if you look around, there's one other farm. Do we want to be the guinea pig, right? And I look around all the towns, and all the towns are looking at us, and they're in moratoriums. We're one of the few towns that allow cultivation, micro-cultivation, but very few even allow that. It's tough.
Have you seen other towns start to make regulations for outdoor cultivation?
I haven't seen too many for the outdoor ones.
Yeah.
The micros, yes, but
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, I've been searching through them.
But I don't think there's many, or if there are any. No.
But most of the towns that developed regs a few years back when we first opened it up, split out retail versus production.
Yes.
Even back then.
I agree, should be separated, they should be two separate issues.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, that may be something that with the codification that can be done now with the micro.
Well, I think it's probably wise to think that through. Let codification move forward, and then we'll think that through based on what you decide to do with this conversation.
Later date.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. So, that's where we're at.
Fair enough.
It's it, at the
I'll
moment.
pass those notes on and see if anything comes back.
And I mean, you know, we can put it on the next agenda for discussion and discuss it for a few meetings or whatever. I mean, that's what I see, but I don't know what anybody else's feeling is.
Got it.
So, it's not completely dead issue. Approval of the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for February 10th, 2025.
Have a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor of her approval? Unanimous? Communications, Jeff?
No new communications.
Nothing. There were some rumors of someone looking at the factory building to do something. I heard a few rumors around town. I don't know. They were just rumors or what.
Which factory?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It was just.
Well, let's just leave it as
It was
rumors
a
for now.
vague. Okay. That's good. Leave it at that.
All right.
No other communications or anything? No. Okay. Adjournment. We'll make it before 9.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. I second it. All in favor? I told you before 9.
You made it.
Okay? I promised. You get home early tonight.
We got a lot done tonight.
Yes, we did. I mean, we made some progress. So, quite a ways.
Nice pen. Didn't get all of them.
I appreciate the red line regulation.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of doing it.
You see anything coming up for our next meeting or?
Nothing yet.
No. Okay. I
Yeah,
didn't know
so
if there's anything
we
in the,
keep working on this business and.
anything in the wind at all, you know? So, no. Okay.
We'll see. Let's see. Mash all the buttons. Yeah. I'll leave it to you.
Unplug it, right?
This is, goes out to